Get started. Thank you all for being here. So today, we'll just get started. So calling officially the order of the David Douglas School Board today, Thursday, October 10th at 7:01 in the David Douglas School District Boardroom. And I just wanted to start off this evening just acknowledging the recent racist incidents that have been happening at our football games. I just wanted to start off the meeting acknowledging that because it's really important to. And I know that there is a football game tonight. And so I know that a lot of our football community is not here and maybe, is or hoping to speak or anything like that and is not here. So I just want to make sure to acknowledge that and just to know that, as the school board, we do know that is happening and we want to work to make sure that this doesn't happen. We want to keep our students in mind. I mean, as an alumni, it breaks my heart to know that this is still continuing. We know that racism is alive and well in our society, and I really, really hope that, the families affected, the students, most importantly affected, are able to have some healing, but also know that we want to work towards a solution. And so I know that we might hear about it tonight and ongoingly, because it's not going to be solved in one evening, but I just want to acknowledge that, to know that you're in our minds, you're in our heart. So thank you. Now want to read the Native American land acknowledgement as we do every meeting. Today we want to start and begin our meeting and our school year by acknowledging that we gathered as David Douglas School District on the traditional land of the Multnomah, Wasco, Cowlitz, Clackamas, bands of Chinook, Tualatin, Kalapuya, Molalla, and many other tribes, past and present, who have made their homes along the Columbia and Willamette rivers, and honoring with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded it throughout the generations. We want to further acknowledge the impact of the forced removal, violence, and attempted erasure of the lives and legacies of Indigenous people, past and present, and to commit to creating an educational environment that honors Indigenous history and contributions and encourages the continual pursuit of better stewardship of the land that we inhabit as well. And I would like to pass it on to Melissa Kate for student body president report.
Hello, my name is Melissa Gate, the ASB president at David Douglas High School. Here's the report so far this month. We started having themed games for our football games to have more engagement. We've seen that student body like to be part of a community, and we show that community within games by doing things together. Our first one was read out. The student section was packed. The Dad's Club was out there with their burgers, and we won that game, so it was very lively. Nice cheers. After that, we decided to post on Instagram an etiquette video for our student section to make sure that we know the rules, how to support our team without, making fun or saying anything bad about the other team, so we know we're showing mutual respect. We taught what to do at games and just stuff like that. In school, we had the club fair, so we lined the breezeway with tables from different clubs so they could have participants to sign up. There was many students out there, although it was raining, so a lot of the clubs got their signups, and there's a lot of new clubs like Model UN, and I'm starting like a little dance thing for BSU as well. We also had half grad, which is we celebrate the juniors who are on track to graduate. We have them skip their 8th or 4th period. They come down to the football field. We celebrate them with games. Their class president, Lydia, has a speech for them. They play games, have ice cream, and just really connect with one another. And then we also had hall decorating as a way to promote our homecoming. Each grade had a specific hallway to decorate because each grade had a different theme. Our overall theme was Pixar, but each grade had a movie, so it was really pretty. Our hallways were super, super colorful. We had homecoming ticket sales. We sold them at lunch and on 5-Star, which has been super efficient. We sold a lot of tickets online, so hopefully we keep that up. We had our spirit days for our homecoming. We had kindergarten day, duo day, dress to impress, which is like a theme on Roblox. And then we had banana out, so like the Minions. And then our homecoming theme, which was Pixar. And then the dance was right after the football game that night. It was 9 to 11 in the South Cafeteria. Super lively. Everyone was having fun, and we had around 650 tickets sold. And now I wanted to touch base on the Nelson incident because it heavily affected our student body. If you aren't aware, there was like a lot of racial slurs and derogatory terms thrown against our football players and our football team. There was a cake thrown into our student section as well. We learned about this through social media because one of the assistant coaches was put like an article. And I've never seen the David Douglas community come together so quickly to start reposting and sharing that story. I've had people from other schools coming out to me, communicating to me, telling me how sorry how they feel bad, how they could help, whatever they could do. This article got a lot of response. We had a lot of community. For our ASB, as soon as we saw that, we knew that we had to say something. We couldn't be quiet. So we made an Instagram post basically saying that we do not tolerate such behavior, and we emphasized the unity that our community really needed right now. So really pack the stands because our football players deserve, not even just our football players, every team deserves to be supported during this occasion. And to talk more about the event, they asked for representatives from our school and Nelson to meet last Tuesday. So 2 ASB members, 2 Black Student Union members, and 2 football players. And we had a meeting at Nelson, which was facilitated by someone that the OSAA brought to the meeting, and we had like an open discussion about the incident. The students from both schools, we discussed how to further prevent this in the future and how to educate our student sections on what to do and how to not be rude and racist. Both student bodies are planning to make this joint pledge at one of our upcoming games next week on Tuesday. They're coming back here to play our volleyball team, and we wanted to do something to highlight what happened so our students aren't unknown or think they're being ignored about like the situation, and we're actually like talking about it and bringing it up into light. The meeting was very appreciated, and we acknowledged that this was a first step, but more work is needed to be done. Even though we did do something, we do need more. We talked about having a meeting within all of our jurisdiction, every team that we play against. Even so, I think things within like their school community needs to be implemented, like lesson plans, like how we do in our advisory, or just something joint, because that was very not good. And lastly, today we had a lunch with the principal, which something Ms. Busher started incorporating monthly, where students got to come sit with the principal and talk about things they wanted to bring to light, or just anything they wanted to talk to her about. And they packed the room. The room was packed. I tried to walk in the hallway, and I turned around because I couldn't move. Everyone wanted to come and sit and talk, and I bet she got a lot of insight from the students and what they wanted, what their voices felt heard. I didn't get to make it there, but I saw that it was a hit, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. I wanted to follow up on something because I didn't mention it earlier, but there will be another listening session for district parents of athletes. And so that invitation has been shared internally. I'm not sure how much we're sharing it externally due to safety, but if you are connected to the district or receiving communication, you should have something to you. And not sharing any more details just to keep it more secure. So if you do have questions, you can reach out to either or Director of Communications if you have questions. And Ken, do you want to?
If you don't mind, I just want to say thank you. I know we had an opportunity to connect before the board meeting, but obviously you communicated the update, but the Humboldt part, she was representing the district as an ASB member and a BSU member, I believe, so in that meeting. So I just want to thank you for that leadership, that willingness to stand up, that willingness to take action, that willingness to communicate, lean in, all of those things. It means the world, and it's leadership. So I just want to publicly thank you and all of the students you get the opportunity to work with. I know they're not all here, so I'm going through you. Really appreciate your willingness to do that. And I know we talked about kind of coming together with the All Mount Hood Conference, and that you guys came up with that idea. I think that's a great idea as well. And what are the standards and how do we do that? So I know whatever we can do to help make that happen, please don't hesitate. If you feel like it's stalling for some reason, or there's something that's not happening, don't hesitate. I know our board leadership, the entire board, will help you in any way that they can, and I can guarantee that we will as well. And I know Ms. Busher is right there as well. So again, I just want to recognize that what happened is terrible, but you leaning in to try to make the situation better, I just want to thank you for that. So.
You're welcome. I do also want to say that our ASB is at Reynolds tonight supporting our football team. We are coming in with Red Out. We brought the Scotty mascot. They're dressed up right now with the speaker, just cheering them on at Reynolds. I wish I could be there, but it's okay. I'm there in spirit. But yeah, we're trying to push that support, especially with times now. But yeah, you're welcome.
I also just want to recognize, because we talked about it, some of the board last Friday night's football game. What a game, and seeing the students in the stands, in their Pixar. I don't know how many Woodies I saw and how many, but the bottom line, you guys were amazing. Our band was amazing, and truly our football team literally won 1 point. So just an amazing game that they played, and it's all of you just represented so well. So thank you.
Yeah, so well said, Ken. Thank you, and thank you, Melissa, and to every student here. Well, who are not here, more as well, for your leadership and supporting each other. I know that it goes such a long way to know that there's so much support within our community and within you all students, and know that you have our support as well. And so next up, we're going to go into public comment. And Tuesday. Okay, I was like, I can't read the name, Tuesday.
Wait, so what am I supposed to do? Do you know that October 14th is Dyslexia Awareness Day? I think that we should celebrate it because 1 out of 5 people have dyslexia. Dyslexia is a disability where it is hard to read, write, spell for young people and older people. The symptoms for younger people and older people are different. I think we should learn about dyslexic people, because like Leonardo da Vinci, Whoopi Goldberg. I have dyslexia. It took me a couple years working with Miss Tate for me to get on grade level. Now I'm above grade level on reading, but I'm still below grade level on writing. Also, we should be able to take a test to know that we're dyslexic, because people who struggle don't know they're dyslexic until they take a test on their own. It's weird because they don't know they're dyslexic and they don't know what's wrong. They know they're behind grade level, and when they try to read, but it's hard for them. I think awareness days are important because people who don't have a disability don't realize it makes it harder on people.
Thank you so much, Tuesday. Up next is Craig Rogers.
Gabriella, I'd like to thank you for making us just a little bit more aware of Native American people, of how we started the meeting off. I have a lot of Cherokee in my blood. Saves me suntan lotion in the summer, but that's about it. But nonetheless, I'm happy to see you acknowledge Native American people. And Melissa, you're incredible, your speaking ability and how much you cover, so I'm really impressed. You got a lot on the ball. I know you could talk longer. So I'd like to first read the freedom of speech statute in the Oregon Constitution is Article 1, Section 8, which states that no law can restrict the right to express opinions or to speak, write, or print freely on any subject. And I think communication is the foundation of all good relationships. So I really support the Oregon Constitution of freedom of speech. And if people like our agencies or, the David Douglas School Board wants to come up with a list of, well, you can't say this, you can't say, I want you to think twice about what you can or can't, because I think we need to share our opinions. And in fact, out there, I live right next to the track, lived there 45 years, and I think you ought to assign the science students to a project that they figure out how to clone Doug Pease, because he's that good. And I got a thing that I say out there, and it's, we're one world, one family, no matter height, weight, color, language, whatever it is. And I know years ago I learned about all the flags inside your gymnasium from people from countries all over the world. And that's it. We're one world, one family. And we got to live that and have that in our attitude and our hearts. And nobody's perfect. Two heads are better than one. I make mistakes all the time. Got really good at laughing at myself. So, I encourage freedom of speech. So here's what happened. I don't know if I'm going to have enough time to tell this. But last week on Friday, somebody sent it to me or something, and it was about just at the end of my street. And I've known about these, where I live, 111th. They park these stolen vehicles and strip them. It's a problem. It's right next to Floyd Middle School, okay? And here they are showing needles and drugs. So then they go to Ted, our mayor, nothing. So and they're moving. The people up there at this business, they're getting out of here. They're moving to. So I sent an email to Ted, and it goes like this: Ted, Portland is being destroyed one street at a time. Ted, as evidenced by KATU2 City in Crisis series, Portland is being destroyed one street at a time. Now the people you do nothing about have come to my street, 111th Stark. I know it doesn't mean nothing to you, but this is where my neighbors and I live, directly next to school. So I've got to ask, you attended those peripheral Ivy League colleges like Columbia, Stanford, Harvard. What the hell did they teach you? I know now, Ted, it doesn't take much other than telling the truth, trash you, and you just stick with the political thing. That's one of the problems with this area. People are not telling the truth. They're just telling the political thing. I don't know if it's a safety issue. You don't want to lose your job. You want to keep climbing that PERS ladder, whatever. But it needs to stop, and it needs to change, and we need to make safety and telling the truth a priority. Now, that's it. I'm glad I got through it. Track, big letters, track. I don't want to forget it. Somebody made decisions that track next to my house, that's like Olympic quality. I've been on a lot of tracks in my life, in my running career.
And that is time. Thank you.
Oh,
that's your time. Thank you.
Understood.
And now for DDEA comment. Student comment. Sorry. How many? Okay. Stephanie. Thank you.
Good evening. It is wonderful to be here today, as usual. And today is an extra special day after last night's session of bargaining, to give you an update on some of the things happening within DDEA. It's nice that we've made it through our open house season, and then we're rapidly moving into conference season. So lots of things happening. It's a PD day for our district tomorrow, so people are getting ready to learn some new things together and share in learning. And so as always, there's things going on within our schools. And I hope that you have all heard from somebody in our schools. We're encouraging our teachers to reach out to you, our CAT leaders, which were contract action team leaders. It's really just our communication systems within the schools, and we hope that they're connecting with you all, inviting you into the schools to kind of see what's happening in all of the schools. Althea, welcome. Hopefully we'll get to know you a little bit better as we go through. I'm Stephanie Myrie. I'm the president of DDEA. And now that we have concluded negotiations and we have a tentative agreement, hopefully we can continue to work together or really start a really big campaign together in a different way. So I have met with a group of educators from across the east side area, east side of Portland, and we are starting to organize for a rally in November after the election, and we know who our elected leaders will be for this coming year or two around funding. And so part of that rally will be some of the things that we are facing here on the east side of Portland, and you know that we're unique and we're really excited to have a spot on city council coming up. We are attending an endorsement process, I think it's next week. And so that's exciting to see, and then we've got to get down to Salem together and really work together on getting the funding that we need. I said that last month, but we're starting some plans to get more active with that and bring our educators and hopefully our families out together to fight the fight that we need to fight for the funding that we need to have quality education here in Oregon. And our district wants our fair share of that. And so hopefully we can do that work together. We're excited to do that work together. And we're very excited to have a tentative agreement that we came to last night at our bargaining session. And I want to just take a minute to thank the district team, who I know we were all sitting around here yesterday. We've all put in a lot of hours over 8 months of bargaining, and really pleased to be in this spot as opposed to our friends in Beaverton that are at a very different spot tonight. And that doesn't happen by accident. And so I do appreciate the work that we do together here to get to an agreement on a contract. It's not always easy. We don't always agree, but we got there, and I really, really appreciate that. And I know that our teachers do too. All of our educators today, there's a lot of celebrations going on in schools and a lot of relief. So thank you for that, and thank you for our continued work together.
Thank you so much. And I just want to echo what you said, Stephanie. It's incredible work from everyone involved. I know it took months to get here, but so thankful that we are, and just really proud of our district and really excited. I know that there's way more work ahead for folks, but I know that, we got there together, and I'm just really proud of the work. So thank you. Thank you. I don't know if you, yeah, please.
If it's okay.
Yeah, of
I was
course,
planning to share a little of my superintendent's report, but following Stephanie there, I think this is a good time. I would also like to recognize and thank everyone involved, specifically DDEA, all the members. There's many people in this room that were here, but the interest, the energy, this room was packed, every bargaining, and that doesn't just happen. That's passion. That's passion for education, passion for student achievement, and passion for our district. And Stephanie said it, alluded to it, talked about it. David Douglas, there are pieces in our district that were different by design, and we're very proud of the relationship with DDEA and the district, the board, administration. It's something we work hard at. And again, we didn't always agree. There were some tough times and meetings and interacting, but I think both sides through it all said, you know what, we're doing this not to be against each other, but for the greater good of the district. And I just so appreciate that willingness and that continued effort. Other things I'll point out, not every district do board members actually come every time and sit at the table. So that is different. So I want to specifically recognize the board team that was there multiple evenings, multiple emails, multiple planning sessions to support ultimately the district, but also our teachers and our staff. That dedication and hours is something that's different, that means a lot. And lastly, I'll be saying it a little bit, my superintendent's report, just because I will be every single time. We stand ready. We will be leaning in. We will be doing the lobby work with you, beside you, next to you, behind you, wherever you want us. We will be there because our entire state needs it. But David Douglas, definitely, we need that funding to come in. And there's certain targets and different things we're looking at. So, but ultimately, thank you, Stephanie, for your leadership. Thank your board team for all they did. And very excited about how we're moving forward. And I already explained a little bit to the board around kind of process, ratification. So one step at a time here. Thank you.
Yeah, that's an invitation to anyone listening who is interested in doing that legislative work with us too. So the invitation's open. And thank you. Next up is OSCA report comment. I don't see Darla. I don't know if someone came on her behalf. Okay, cool. Then I guess not tonight, but next time. And so now we have invited input from, first off, Floyd Light, Mr. Principal Pease. Hi. Yeah, thanks for getting here early. It makes this more seamless. I know, we're just zooming past. I guess that would be a good note. Lori, if the person who's coming up next if you could text them, or we could also get back. Thank you so much. The floor is yours.
Well, that's great. Thank you. Really appreciate being here. Thank you for letting us, me, I guess, but on behalf of Floyd Light, really appreciate being here. Really having a great year. I wrote down some things, so I'm going to talk about them. And first off, this presentation was done by our equity team, especially Malik White. Really appreciate the work that he did. We have an abbreviated version of what he did here, and Andy Locke summarized it so we can get it in 5 minutes, just to make it brief. But I encourage you to see the whole presentation. There's about 12 slides here, and Malik did about 37. So I encourage you to look at all of them. And then I'm going to do a plug. Our Sun program and our Family Falcon Club, which is our family club, is doing a Dia de los Muertos night on November 1st, Friday, from 5:30 to 7:30. I invite all of you to be there. And then our annual, which we've had for last several years, multicultural night, is February 27th from 6 to 7:30. Always a huge hit. Last year we had about 400 people. So come early and enjoy have a lot of food, a lot of presentations. Our students welcome everyone, and we'll have a lot of entertainment. So I encourage you to come. Did I say it? February 27th, so Thursday. We're talking about Indigenous Peoples Day, which will be next Monday, the 14th. But I want to be clear that, like all of our schools, we celebrate diversity at Floyd Light every single day. I just want to emphasize that. We're presenting this to you right now, but we really are proud of our diversity, and we celebrate it. So thank you for letting us talk about the presentation for Indigenous Peoples Day. We want to recognize the importance of Indigenous peoples' contributions to society as a whole and to the David Douglas community. Go ahead. Oh, you're just great. Here's some interesting facts about Indigenous Peoples Day. So I'll just let you look at that. Just the third slide? I think it is. The fourth slide, okay. Andy Locke has me slide by slide, so I'm trying to keep up. So, it also celebrates the cultures, contributions, and resiliency of contemporary Native peoples. As of 2021, Indigenous Peoples Day is officially recognized as a national holiday. This day allows Native people and their perspective to be centered and celebrated. So I'll let you look at this for a few seconds. Okay, thank you. While we want to recognize the impact of colonialism on Indigenous people, we also want to make sure we're celebrating the history, culture, contributions, and resilience of Native peoples. And following is a few facts about Indigenous peoples. A little over 2% of the population in the U.S. identify as Native American. Okay. The Portland metro area rests on traditional village sites, and I'm going to go off script here. I do know that this is recognized at the beginning of board meetings, but I'm going to repeat it here. So this is the next slide, by the way. Multnomah, Wasco, Cowlitz, Cathlamet, Clackamas, bands of Chinook, Tualatin, Kalapuya, Malala, and many other tribes who made their homes along the Columbia River. Here are some facts about Indigenous peoples in the David Douglas community. There are about 700 students who identify as American Indian or Alaskan Native. These students bring a wealth of cultural heritage from communities across North, Central, and South America. We want to make sure our students feel recognized, valued, and represented within all of our schools. Here are a couple of ways we can celebrate locally. There is an Indigenous Peoples Day of service at Nea's Community Garden on October 14th. This is an opportunity to tend the land of Nea's Food Sovereignty Project. There is also an Indigenous Peoples Day celebration at Barbie's Village on October 14th that includes free dinner, a children's powwow, and other entertainment. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And I encourage you, I know I went fast, but you have this presentation and the rest of it so you can have all those facts there. Anyone have any questions? Anything? So
My only question is, how do you celebrate more specifically at Floyd Light? Did you all have anything planned? I'm sure you do, but just want to hear it.
Absolutely. We have a very strong advisory program, and we have a committee that meets every Friday, and they plan out the next week's celebrations. And we have several presentations, this slide deck itself, and some other information that we're going to be imparting to our students next week in our advisory. It's a 25-minute period at the beginning of the day.
I also will say that having had a couple kids go through Floyd Light, that it's imbued in the curriculum for that particular week up and down those grade levels. And my kids have brought home examples of that. So it's happening in the classroom as well.
Thank you, Stephanie. Appreciate that.
Thank you. I don't know if anyone else has questions. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And I always want to do a plug. Thank you for all the time that you put in, not only on the bargaining that I heard about, but just in general. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you. I think we are waiting on our next presenter, so I think we're going to go forward on the agenda for now, and then we'll hear the presentation once they get here, because we're a lot early, so hopefully we can keep being early. We have the proclamation for Hispanic Latinx Heritage Month. Althea, I know you haven't had the chance to do this, but we usually read like a section, each of us. Do you feel okay joining, or did you want to just...
I'd like to join.
Okay, let's do it. So we'll start with Erin. If you can start us off, and then we'll keep going and take section by section.
Sure, thank you, Gabriela. Whereas the Latin heritage of the United States extends historically over 5 centuries, has been consistent and a vital influence to our country's growth and prosperity, and
whereas Latinx culture is tied to Iberian ancestry, and our culture recognizes that Latinx are multiracial and multicultural who can trace their historical roots to indigenous and African ancestry, and
whereas Latinx in Oregon are a diverse mix of first-generation immigrants and longtime residents. The definition of Latinx is tied to the cultures across 24 countries in Latin America and the Caribbean, including the United States, Mexico, Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, Cuba, Guatemala, Belize, El Salvador, Costa Rica, Honduras, Nicaragua, Panama, Colombia, Peru, Ecuador, Paraguay, Uruguay, Brazil, Venezuela, Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, and Spain. They reflect an array of distinct and vibrant cultures that have enriched our community in valuable ways, and
whereas Hispanic Heritage Month was started as a Heritage Week in 1968 and begins on September 15th, which is the anniversary of the independence of 5 Latin American countries, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua, and
whereas Latinas have supported Portland's economy with many contributions and leadership in the fields of commerce, science, technology, public service, health, arts, and more, today their purchasing power in Portland is nearly $4 billion, and
Whereas despite these contributions in leadership, Hispanic and Latinx communities are still less likely to work in managerial or professional occupations, have a median household income that is significantly lower than non-Hispanic whites, and more than 20% reported living in poverty at the poverty level in 2015. And
whereas Hispanic people have the highest medical uninsured rates of any racial or ethnic group within the U.S., which is attributed to linguistic and cultural barriers and a lack of access to preventative care, and
whereas racially motivated discrimination and harassment is at a local and national high, with a spike in hate crimes reported against Latinx community, and
whereas 74% of Hispanic Latinx students in David Douglas School District high schools self-report that they were bullied last year due to how I look, and
whereas we recognize that given the hardships and disparities faced by the Latinx community, this proclamation is only a small step of many that we need to take to truly be inclusive and supportive of our Latinx students and their families, and
whereas 30.5% or 2,759 enrolled students are Hispanic and or Latinx, and the Hispanic Latinx student population has grown from 4.6% of the total to 30.5% of the total population from 1996 to 2024. Students who self-identified as Hispanic also identified as American Indian, Alaska Native, Asian, Black, Pacific Islander, white, or multicultural, and
whereas 66.1% of Latina students in the 2022-2023 four-year cohort graduated, of which, when disaggregated by sex, 77.3% of self-identified Latina female students graduated, and 58.3% of self-identified Latina male students graduated, and
whereas 14% of the ASB student leadership has identified as Latinx, and
whereas the Latinx Student Union organizes and promotes student success for Latinx students, and
whereas 10.12% of the district leadership, supervisors, managers, principals, have self-identified as Latinx, and
whereas as of September 2024, DDSD had 150 employees who identified as Hispanic Latinx, and
whereas Spanish is the second most commonly spoken home language in the district, with 922 Spanish-speaking homes, and
whereas in June 2019, David Douglas High School hosted its first Spanish language graduation, and during the event, students shared multilingual poetry and songs that celebrated diverse Hispanic and Latinx cultures, and
whereas our Hispanic and Latina families lead and actively participate in groups across school campuses, including intercambio groups at several elementary schools, Latino parent groups across the district, culturally specific family nights, and more. And
Whereas the David Douglas School District is committed to and advocates for equal educational, professional, and social opportunities for Latinx students, and
Whereas the strategic hiring plan outlines specific strategies to increase staff of color, including a Grow Your Own program with 50 staff of color enrolled.
Whereas the David Douglas School District has adopted educational equity policy and an equal educational opportunity policy that states our commitment to closing the achievement gap for Latinx students and creating an educational environment where all students can benefit equally from the educational programs offered. And
whereas the Oregon State Legislature passed a $2 billion investment, the Student Success Act, into Oregon's K through 12 schools, $1 million specifically for Latinx student success, for the Latinx Student Success statewide plan. And
whereas the district is working towards eliminating the racial predictability and disproportionality on all aspects of education and articulated action steps in the adopted district strategic plan and district equity plan. And
whereas the district collaborates and partners with community-based organizations like Latino Network, El Program Hispanio to form strong relationships in a culturally appropriate way and to provide the space for feedback and guidance to district leaders on improving outcomes and opportunities for Latinx students and families in the district.
now therefore be it resolved that David Douglas School Board of Directors do hereby proclaim September 15th to October 15th to be Latinx Heritage Month, in recognition and celebration of many contributions of Latine to the country and our community, and be it further resolved that the David Douglas School Board of Directors strongly encourages staff and community to observe, recognize, and celebrate the culture, heritage, and contributions of Latinx to our country, our state, our cities, and our schools. Thank you, everyone.
Gabby,
Yes.
I don't know if I should put into that or not. There is a spot where there's like, we use Latinx because it's gender neutral, but there's a spot where we call female students Latinx and male students Latinx, but we're specifically saying gendered students, so it probably should read Latina and Latino. Just might be a thing to fix for the future.
And yeah, edit for next year. Thank you. And I'm guessing our guest is probably still not here, so we're going to continue on to the next proclamation, which is or resolution on Indigenous Peoples Day. So likewise, same as our previous one, and then we'll start with Hua this time, please.
Oh, just want to make sure. The David Douglas School District Indigenous Peoples Day Resolution. Whereas the David Douglas School Board of Education recognizes that the indigenous peoples of the lands that would later become known as the Americas have occupied these lands since time immemorial, and
whereas the board values the many contributions made to our community through indigenous peoples' knowledge, labor, technology, science, philosophy, arts, and the deep cultural contribution that has substantially shaped our district, and
whereas the board has established that each student is to be celebrated and appreciated for the distinct and vibrant contributions made by sharing cultures, language, ideas, beliefs, and values within the school community, and
whereas the board recognizes that the David Douglas School District is built upon the homelands and villages and traditional use areas of the Multnomah and Clackamas Chinook of the region, without whom the building of the district would not be possible, and
whereas the district has adopted equity policy that states our commitment to closing the achievement gap for Indigenous peoples and students and creating an educational environment where all students can benefit equally from the educational programs offered, and
whereas the district is working towards eliminating the racial predictability and disproportionality on all aspects of education and articulated action steps in the adopted district strategic plan and district equity plan, and
whereas the idea of Indigenous Peoples Day was first proposed in 1977 by a delegation of Native nations to the United Nations, and
whereas the Oregon American Indian Alaska Native State Plan mandates that the public schools of our district teach about the history, culture, contemporary lives, and governments of the indigenous peoples of the Americas, with special emphasis on those from Oregon and across the Pacific Northwest.
Now, therefore, be it resolved that every second Monday of October will be Indigenous Peoples Day in the David Douglas School District.
Be it further resolved that the district shall encourage staff to utilize the second Monday in October as an opportunity to reflect upon the ongoing struggles of Indigenous peoples of this land, to celebrate the thriving cultures and values of the Indigenous peoples of our region, and to stand in solidarity with Indigenous peoples elsewhere.
Be it further resolved that the district calendars and websites shall reference the second Monday of October as Indigenous Peoples Day. Be it further resolved that the board strongly encourages our staff and community to observe, recognize, and celebrate the culture, heritage, and contributions of Native Americans to our country, our state, our cities, and our schools. Thank you, everyone. And Laura, do we have an update on our guest? Oh, awesome. Hi, welcome. It's off. If you want to introduce yourself and from school, name, and your presentation, please.
Lincoln Park Elementary School. Thank you for giving me the time to just talk a little bit about myself and Hispanic Heritage Month and what it means to me. And first off, I just want to say that it's not necessarily a month, a year for me. It's a lifestyle. It's something that the weight of what I take the weight of like my ancestors with me when I come into this place. And just being at David Douglas in an immersion program where we have the only Spanish-speaking immersion program in the district. It's great to be going in there and to just see the kids looking at me. And to this day, I still have kids when they wear their Mexico jersey, just kind of like show it off to me, you know, and just because they know that I wear Mexico jersey and soccer jerseys and things like that. And it's just the pride that I see. And for me, just being there and being a representation of my culture and just the struggles that I know that my parents went through to get me to where I'm at as well. I know that when I see the students at Lincoln Park, I see myself in them. And though I didn't do an immersion program myself, or not necessarily just the students in the immersion program, but just the students that are there looking up to me, they also are like what I was growing up in small town of Independence and also Southern California. So we could go through some of the slides a little bit, just kind of a generic slide of, you know, what the population of the Latino community is. But, you know, here at David Douglas, I believe we're like about 30% or close to that, especially in the elementary school right now. Next one. Something that I talked with one of my teachers this week, just because we're coming to the end of it, and part of me is always trying to grow and trying to look at what we've done and how to do things better. And we talked about two things, like visibility and education. Visibility of just having things out there, but at the same time, if the pictures of Sotomayor or Ochoa or Cesar Chavez or anybody is there without any educational time behind it, what do those pictures really mean to like a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, 4-year-olds, you know, the elementary school kids? You know, they're just kind of old people on the wall, right? So how do we carve that little bit of time to actually implement some of our, the history into some of these time blocks for our students to really learn and get an idea as to who these people really are and why they're so important. So, you know, I challenge David Douglas School District, myself, my school, in providing that little bit of time for the teachers to be able to provide that. And also, too, it's not just the teachers, it's the community members. Can you invite some people into our community to be those voices of why their lives are important or why their struggles are important or what are they going through? So things like that is what I'm thinking about for myself next year as to how to improve this month and any month moving forward that we have. We have several other cultural months that we also need to get familiar with. And it is difficult for us, especially it being the first month of the year coming into school. You know, the planning really needs to be over the summer or in the spring for us to get ready to really kick it off. We could go to some of the other slides. Next one. Again, thank you for your time. I just wanted to share a little bit about what we're doing for myself and my community, and also just David Douglas in general. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Does anyone have a question?
Yeah.
Before? Thank you. I don't know if you wanted to share, because I asked this of the previous principal, if you wanted to share any specifics of what you're doing in schools. I think it's really cool to know that, you know, our language immersion, I think that's like a huge plus, and I feel like students must be so excited to get to celebrate, so would love to hear.
Yeah, just right now we have, like, as you enter our school, we finally got, we misplaced the key to our display case, so we finally we got that figured out. We have that now, so we have a display case going on in the front of the school. We could use one in the back, or we need to do something in the back right now. I grabbed the speaker, I put Spanish-speaking music in there, so as you come in, it's, you know, people are getting the vibe of coming into the space, and, you know, it makes them happy to see the music, especially our older staff that recognize the music. The kids, not so much. What we'd like to do is just post something more into the public spaces. We have 4 bulletin boards that are dedicated for some of the cultural specific months that we're going to be having, and this one is where we have all the photos of Latino people in the community, and then also we added our faces. So we have I'd say about 20 staff members whose photos are up there, just as part of that as well. And yeah, I think that's it for now.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation, both of you. Thank you so much. I wanted to mention this to you, Melissa, because usually we would say it, and I think I forgot that, you know, you're welcome to stay, but also no pressure to stay the whole time. But we love having you here. I just wanted to make sure to note that if you had homework or something, football game. If you did want to go to the football game, there's still a chance. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that just so that you didn't feel pressured to stay the whole time. But we would love to have you the whole time if you are available. And yeah, and ask questions. So when I say if you have questions, like, it's not just for the adults, it's also for you. You're more than welcome to let us know and interrupt us anytime. So thank you both.
Yep.
All right, so we are moving on, and still ahead of schedule on our consent agenda. Bye. If anybody has a motion.
I move to approve consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, so it moves to a vote, starting with Barrow.
Barrow, aye.
Oh, shoot. Sorry, you're right. Move on to discussion. Does anyone have any questions, thoughts? Okay, awesome. Okay. Starting again. Athea.
Ender, aye.
Yeah. Santana Lopez, aye.
Franklin, I.
Camilo Jerson, aye.
Stevens, aye.
Win, aye.
Awesome. It has been moved and passed. Thank you all so much. So I know we heard a little bit earlier, but officially the superintendent's report.
Thank you so much, and I will do my best to keep us ahead of schedule. But first, I have to say, Andy, because Melissa's staying, that doesn't mean you get to go to the football game. You do have to stay. So, yeah. With that said, I do want to start with, I know I cannot say it as well as Melissa did, and I know you already made a public statement. And Melissa, I thanked you for your work, but I also want to apologize to you and all of our student body. You should it should be a right. It should be common for you to go anywhere in our community, any other school. You should feel safe, supported, welcomed, just like you work so hard to make sure that when student bodies and families come here, they're safe, supported, and welcome. And again, thanking you for all your work, but apologizing because the adults failed you, me failed you, and we need to get better. And I can tell you, this team, there's no doubt in my mind, is committed to get better. I've had conversations with neighboring superintendents, your idea of coming together as a conference, and I can tell you they are very much committed to the work as well for us to get better. So I'm talking to you, but I'm also talking to our entire student body, not just the high school in general, that I think we owe you and our community an apology that we have to do better as communities, neighbors, communities. When we go to a sporting event, we go to a band concert, we go anywhere, that's what we're going for, right? And so thank you, and I apologize. And the rest of my statement, I think the two of you said much better than I could, so I'll leave it at that. But I do want to continue to open it up. If there's anything, I don't know that I have an answer. I'd be probably more learning from you, but coming to talk to ASB, to listen to ASB, to come to leadership classes, I guarantee I could call any one of these board members, they'd be there like that, and I guarantee anyone on cabinet, other administrators would be there like that. So please don't ever say, hey, Ms. Stiff, that old guy said he'd come talk to us. We will be there, okay? So please know we want to help in the process. So thank you. With that said, I did want to give a few more updates, just kind of some work that's been going on. It's the beginning of the year, but some things we're proud of. And one I'm going to throw out, and I actually added this late, and maybe Andy will weigh in a little bit, but a little bit of a explanation. We talk about being different by design, and obviously I'm going to brag up a lot when we're up here, some of the stuff we do. But some of the work we've been engaged in, one of the things that we did last week under Stephanie's and Andy's leadership is basically a labor management training opportunity to network. And what we do is we come together with every principal, many principals were involved in that, and our union reps. And the idea is to come together to talk about how do we have labor relations? How do we have conversations together? How do we deal with contract issues, but how do we also just talk about, it doesn't have to be contract, it could just be things that we need to network and connect on to make sure we're doing the right things in our building so we can better serve our kids ultimately. Andy, I don't know if you want to add anything. Like I said, this is a late ad, so.
Yeah, that's fine. Quickly, I will say it was pretty cool to see so many people in the room, so many district leaders, whatever. We always say leadership's not by a title, so that part of it was great. And also, I do think it's what separates our district from others, is that relationship that we have where we could come together and really problem solve real issues. Steph and I tried intentionally to have less slides so we could have more time to actually communicate with reps and administrators. We have some here that I see them nodding in the room, that were there, and Steph did a really good job of organizing it. So we've got nothing but good positive feedback from that it was well worth people's time. And for me, it's just great to get admin and reps together just to spend time talking about what does it look like at your building or your site. I think we can all get better together that way.
Yeah. Ultimately, labor management is not about us against them. It's about we're all here for the same reason. We're all here for the kids. So how do we work together to do that? So just, again, snapshot. The other thing I wanted to share under IDA's leadership and Cassie's leadership, we had our second annual Partner Summit summary last week and last Friday, I believe, with the goal to strengthen our district partnerships and ultimately recognizing that the collaboration is crucial with our district partners. I believe there's somewhere north of 13 to 15 different partnership groups there, but well over 100 people were in Floyd Light's cafeteria. And again, just exciting work to basically acknowledge, recognize we can't do this work without community partners. We can't do this work to the best level without everyone helping us in the same thing, us helping them. So thank you, IDA. Thank you, everyone involved. It was really a great morning. I only got to stay a little bit, but when I was there, you could feel the energy in the room. So again, last thing I'll say is just the promotion under IDA's leadership and what you're doing, those authentic relationships, it truly is our strategic plan and what we're trying to do. Also, like the parent liaison and trainings that are happening, it's one year at a time, but it's getting so much better. So thank you, IDA and team. It's definitely noticed. The other thing was already brought up, I believe it was Stephanie brought up, that tomorrow, no school. That no school is a professional development day. Many of you might know it as a state in-service day. Every year, Oregon has a date. Used to be a lot more state trainings. Those are a lot less, more limited. But the reality, I'm not going to go through in the interest of time, but you can see all the different trainings that are at every level, from reading to math. Actually, high school is doing some things around AI, technology. The one thing that stands out as well in this that you might not say, I guess there's a little theme here different, there's a lot of training in here for our classified employees that we're very proud of, because many districts don't do that, don't necessarily invest in that, and I think it's something that's special that we're able to do. So the reality is I'm looking for a great day of PD tomorrow and training. As a snapshot, the other thing I wanted to recognize as we're talking here is this month, September, was also the Attendance Awareness Month. So just a snapshot for all of us. We know that our chronic attendance still isn't, or our attendance in general, but our chronic attendance is still at a level following COVID that is really, we don't want it. So we're working very hard to engage with our families and community to raise that chronic level and ultimately improve our attendance in general. Actually, Hua should probably be presenting this with her expertise, but the reality is kind of that we were in 20 days of September up until a few days, I think October 7th, we had 20 different days. And if you miss 2 days, you're chronic. And we had 91.5 students for ADA. So I can tell you that the kind of the level, we do still have a lot of work to do, but definitely some high parts. And just a piece random here, we have Menlo in the audience. Menlo Park decreased their chronic rate by 5.4 percentage points from this time last year. So great job, Menlo. Lots of hard work. Furridge not here, but decreased chronic rate by 5.7%. And West Powhurst decreased chronic rate by 3.3%. I'll also say it, and I don't want people to say, well, how is that even work? But DDOA middle school increased 16 percentage point. DDOA K5 increased 10.3. DDOA high school 9 percentage points. So they are taking attendance. It is important for online for kids to attend as well. So the reality is we're still not where we want to be, but there are some bright spots and we're doing the work and really excited about that work. The next one, I told you that unfortunately I'm going to be a broken record here a little bit, and that is our legislative work and kind of where we're at and where we're heading. Stephanie said it, we are definitely honing in on funding in general, state funding in general. What is the number? Where are we at? We believe we have a commitment with the governor around CSL, which is very helpful, but that CSL is just the floor. And we're thankful that CSL is repaired, fixed at a better level, but the reality is that's still not enough. We need to be talking about the ceiling. We need to be talking about investing. So that adequate piece and how we get that and continue to lobby for it. Also on top of that, we'll be talking about unfunded mandates in general for our legislature to really understand the impacts of that. And what we're going to be doing is thinking about it through the lens of unemployment insurance. So we know there was a change in unemployment insurance, and we can really quantify that cost. So that's something we're talking about and thinking about. The special education cap, I believe I've shared with this team. We're looking at that, the reality of where that cap is under funds. The current cap is at 11%. The state average is at about 15%. So thinking about that as a conversation that helps with funding all together, as well as the high cost disabilities and the funding around that. So again, those are some areas that we're really going to be leaning in, having conversation with our electeds and legislatures, just trying to figure out how we can work together to solve those issues with really an eye focused on the funding in general. With that said, not only is at the state level through COSA conversations, thinking about how we move forward, we also have lobbyist Stacy Michelson. I believe everyone at this table knows her. Might not have met her yet, but she's through the ESD. She's a hired lobbyist that we all pay, East County schools pay money into, so she supports all of us. I just want to share that as we're doing agenda planning, if we ever want her to come to share some of her work, where she's at, what she's doing, she will be here in a heartbeat. And also there's a focus on that statewide, which much of what we're talking about at a community level is the same targets, and we will be leaning in. But there are some things that I've shared with the board update as well, is thinking about some of the group home impacts to East Portland and the reality of an understanding of that and what that impact is. So when they are permitting and building, that they get that in our community and how that impacts our community. Also, cross-district transportation is something we're going to be talking about. So ultimately, there are some local, regional areas as well that we'll be working with our specific lobbyists on as well. And then, oh, I'm sorry, I thought so. A couple other things here we already talked about. I'm just going to say it again. We have a TA for bargaining. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, we'll take it. And the last two things here, one is, well, actually three things. One is just want to be updating the board always around enrollment this time of year. Flat. It's not up. Well, it is up by about 100 students. We'll take it, but that's really not up when kids are still coming and going. So, but it's not down. It's not in a free fall, but it is definitely not up yet. So that's something that we're going to have to continue to track. I will also send an update email, as I always do with kind of these. I will share the theme in here. The highlights and the family engagement really is the highlights. All the community events that our schools are happening as we're reopening schools seems to be a theme. And one of the concerns is really some of the high needs behaviors that our buildings are still working with our students and trying to address and develop systems within our school to truly support our kids. So, but you'll get that tomorrow. And then I think the legislative attendance, the last thing I want to do, and there's a few people in this room, so I'm excited about this, but it is National Principals Month as well. So just to recognize our principals and to say thank you for all your work. I have a statement to read, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to say thank you. Everyone at this table, I think everyone in our district know how hard our building principals work, and we know the reason. The reason's heart. The reason is that you believe in our kids and that you're doing everything in your power to support them every day. And it is hard work. We've talked about it. It's also rewarding work, and you exemplify that work. So thank you to the principals that are here, but also to all the principals out in the happy National Principals Month, and thank you for what you do. And that will be my superintendent's report for the evening.
Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone here and not here, like you said. People watching us, maybe. Thank you. And we are moving forward with
Gabriella?
Yes.
Sorry, I had a question.
Sure,
do you mind?
Yeah.
I was curious, you mentioned parent liaisons, and I was talking to one of our principals today, and she mentioned the same thing. It's the first time I've heard of them. Could you just real quick, I'm real curious what that is.
Yep. So what I recognized and shared was our academy. Ida, do you want to step up and share a little bit of work about was it Tuesday night? Yeah, it was Tuesday night. Yeah, the parent ambassadors and
Yeah, it's the Family Ambassador Program, which is in our strategic plan with Cassie's leadership and the Family Engagement Specialist team. We, in collaboration with our administrators, we reach out to our families to get representatives from across the school district, families that are interested, or community, family leaders that are interested in coming together as a community to learn together from experiences, how we can get better. But the idea is to empower those families so they can empower other families to continue advocating for their children and just learning how to navigate our school district. So that's what it is. Yeah.
And they're volunteers, right? They're not paid staff, but they're actually family volunteers that you're training to help other parents.
Correct. And it's sort of following the model from the Earl Boyles Elementary Parent Ambassador Program from several years ago, where they actually took the community health worker training. But what we're doing is focusing on education and resources, just local resources.
I think, it's really cool. I just wanted to get a little more clarification on that. And thanks, Sarah, for bringing that up today. Oh, I had one more question, actually. When you were talking about attendance, I think what you said was 2 missed days is considered chronic.
Just based on this first I don't have it in front of me, but the first 20 days of school. So if you take 20 days, it's basically the math of it. If you miss 2 days, that's chronic. So the only reason I shared that is some people think, oh, it's just a day, or it's just a, every day matters. It's hard for students to learn when they're not in front of a teacher or a caring adult moving forward. So we're really trying to push how important attendance is and that it does matter, and kind of spotlighting. You miss 1 day and, oh, you just missed 1. You miss 2 days, oh, you just missed 2. Now you're in the chronic range. So it was just kind of a snapshot is what that was.
I was just curious because my one of my kids had a couple of mental health appointments at the DDSD Health Center this month. And they did go to school. I think they both got to school around 10 o'clock and were considered chronic absenteeism folks. So I got texts from the school messages because my kids are chronically absent now. And I'm just wondering if it doesn't seem like there's a lot of nuance in that conversation, because A, it was like they were still on district campus. B, sorry, I don't mean to get too in the weeds. It's just interesting to me that even missing an hour of, homeroom to go to a medical appointment is still considered a miss for the day,
Yeah, well, and you can excuse that absence. So there's a difference between unexcused and excused absence. There's a process there. But yeah, some of the data, unfortunately, it doesn't always quantify why a student's gone. And we would never, this isn't about punishing a student that misses, or, and obviously I'm saying this, you kind of talk out of both sides of your mouth. And what I mean by that, if a student's sick, if a staff person's sick, we do want them to stay home and take care of themselves. We absolutely. But the reality of how much attendance is impacting, we believe, the learning, and we believe that students are missing at a chronic rate. We are trying to give a spotlight to that without, again, trying to be negative around it. The idea is not negativity. The idea is communication of how important attendance is. Yeah.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it.
Anyone else have any more questions? I'm like speeding through, but I need to take the moment to also ask. So thank you, Erin, for that reminder. So up next is action item, which is on the integrated plan, annual report, and public input. I don't know. Okay, awesome. Elise, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you all. I'm Elise Hall, Assistant Director of Title Programs, and I'm part of our Integrated Grants team. And I'm here tonight to present to you our annual report. Next slide, please. So our objectives for this evening is just to brief review of the integrated plan components. This is our first full year of implementation of the integrated grant components, so wanting to just kind of review those briefly, and then moving into the highlights from our annual report, focusing on a strength and also a barrier, and then ultimately resulting hopefully in approval from the board for our annual report, which will then be shared with ODE and also placed on our district website. So just to review, the integrated plan is from ODE and is called Aligning for Student Success. It integrates different district or state initiatives. The intent of this work is to streamline multiple grant application processes so that it's just one larger process, while it's aligning those strategies to provide better outcomes for students. Ultimately, our goal is that we have a greater emphasis on equity, community engagement, and more well-rounded education for students. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I wanted to share with you how that impacts David Douglas. On the left side in the column there, you can see all of the state initiatives and then an amount for David Douglas from those initiatives for the 23-24 school year. And then you can see from those initiatives what the overview or the use, how we can use those funds. And some of our bigger grant amounts are High School Success, which is a grant from 2016, but now it's embedded into this process. And then our SIA, the Student Investment Account, which was a process for student success from 2019. And so all of those now are weaving together. Some of these are funded and some are unfunded, and how we utilize all of these to meet not only those grant goals, but the overall initiatives. Next slide, please. So our integrated plan outcomes are, we have 4 primary outcomes. The first one is always increasing student achievement for all students, as well as reducing those learning opportunity gaps. Our second one is increasing graduation rate for all students and reducing graduation rate gaps, increasing college and career readiness, and improving our school climate and culture. So all of our goals and outcomes are wrapped around these top 4 components. This is an overview of the strategies. So if those were our 4 overarching goals, these are our strategies and how we utilized all of these resources. We have a comprehensive staffing plan. We are including a job-embedded professional learning plan, specialized staff and supports, utilizing high-quality data to inform our decisions, including advanced placement and college-level opportunities, partnerships for CTE, as well as community-based partnerships, industry-standard CTE programs and curriculum, well-rounded programming and health and safety measures, and ongoing community engagement. So those are the overarching ways that we are meeting those 4 goals. And then as we drill down, I mentioned a couple of our initiatives that have larger funding amount to them. SIA, our investments are counselors and social workers, elementary teachers to decrease class sizes, instructional assistants to support students, a robust SUN partnerships, community sports, elementary PE and middle school health teachers, and ongoing job-embedded professional learning, including the IAs supporting our paraeducators, and that would be included in like tomorrow's offerings of sessions for our IA staff as part of that statewide in-service day. We also have a robust high school success and CTE Perkins initiative, and that includes those graduation and transition mentors to support our graduation, partnerships and social workers and mentoring, professional learning, industry standard, the CTE curriculum, and a focus on math, advanced placement, dual credit, and CTE programs, as well as well-rounded activities. So those are a couple of highlights of how we are using this integrated grants and our plan. As part of our annual report, we need to reflect on and review our progress. And again, this is for the 23-24 school year. It was our first year of the full implementation of the integrated grants. And I'm happy to share that using our progress markers, our reflection process, and looking at our implementation of our plan, we have met on a long-term goal for 3rd grade reading outcomes. So each year now, the state has set with us a longitudinal performance growth target. And for this year, we have met in the outcome of 3rd grade reading. Through our reflection process, we're looking at all of the things that we've done within our integrated plan to support meeting this goal. And we look at our additional elementary teachers and instructional assistants to reduce the class sizes. We've been providing professional learning for our instructional assistants in the science of reading. We have adopted a curriculum, a high quality literacy curriculum, and last year was our 2nd year of implementation of that curriculum. We've developed pacing guides that were collaboratively developed with our teachers and are aligned to the science of reading. And we have collected data on usage for last year. Teachers self-reported that they had a thorough or advanced use. 84.2% of our teachers said they had thorough or advanced use of those curriculum pacing guides, they are curriculum maps. We have literacy essential agreements that we rolled out last year that are aligned to the early literacy framework with the state of Oregon and the science of reading. So those are all ways that we have supported our literacy plan and have met the performance growth targets. One of the things we're excited about is we've had 3 rounds of coaching for all of our K through 2nd grade teachers in strong foundational early literacy skills, and we believe that will also support this year's round on meeting the goals for 3rd grade results. Another part of our plan review is looking at the barriers, and we believe a barrier in achieving our goals is in our chronic attendance. And so that is something that we're continuing to work on this year. We did not meet our longitudinal performance growth target for our all students, but we did meet for our focus group. Our goal for this year is a goal of 67% for all students and 62% for our focus groups. And so we are launching an annual attendance campaign across the district. We've seen some bright spots, and you heard that from the superintendent's report today. And so we're continuing to work to close that gap, as we believe that that is an impacting factor to the outcomes that we want for our students. So finally, I turn it to you if you have any questions, but our school boards must review and approve our integrated annual plan prior to us submitting to ODE. And we are also currently working on our updated integrated plan for the 25-27 school year, and we'll be bringing that to you in March and April. But do you have any questions for me about our annual report?
Just one. I'm curious, the curriculum pacing guides, the fidelity increasement, is that self-reported?
It's self-reported that teachers were saying they used them. They had thorough use of the pacing guides.
I just wanted the methodology. Thanks.
I do have a question. So I really appreciate seeing the barriers in attendance as a priority. I'm doing a lot of work around that on outside of this role as a board member. So I really appreciate that. In terms of barriers to attendance, is there like specific areas of focus that you see from the data that could be intentional of focus? Like, is it by race, ethnicity, or special programs or grades that you feel like could stand out in attendance in this district? So some targeted supports in that data would be helpful to kind of know what we're seeing that we need to see in this district.
What we've noticed is that our primary grades, our attendance is, we have more chronic attendance in our primary grades, and then later on in high school, I think senior year. So those are the areas, but we did meet for our focal group goal for this year. So we are seeing that we're starting to close the gap there, but we want that for all students. But our primary grades are where we're seeing more of the attendance.
Okay, thank you. First question I have, Arthur Academy is captured in the data for 3rd grade reading, is that correct?
That's a good question. I'd have to go back and check, but they have their own integrated plan.
They do? Okay.
Yes.
I was trying to understand the state report and catch up because it's just got released. So I thought that the metric was capturing that, and it's a little confusing to me because we don't have any sort of oversight over them, but their numbers, I think, are captured in the data. And the numbers we're reporting in terms of 3rd grade literacy, and they have much higher literacy rates for 3rd grade literacy than we do. So I was just confused by it, but I can follow up with that a little bit more later. And I also, where do we have access to the longitudinal performance growth targets?
I believe they are in the plan that we submitted, but I can send those to you.
Okay. And how many targets are we measuring beyond 3rd grade literacy in the graduation? Because there's the one 3rd grade literacy mark that's our strength, and then for the barriers we have all chronic absenteeism What other targets are we measuring?
The other targets we're measuring are our 4-year graduation rate, our 5-year graduation rate, and our 9th grade on track.
Okay. And are those data points reported in here too? In the full report going through?
Those are mentioned in the report, but that data is not confirmed yet. It won't be confirmed, I believe, until, for the graduation rate, it won't be confirmed until January.
Okay.
But we have preliminary, kind of our internal data, but in that we can share that with you.
Okay. As I mean, I've only seen high level stuff. I haven't seen anything real specific lately, and I'm wondering like how we're doing, because I mean the data coming out does not look good, and so I'm wondering how the rest of those indicators, particularly around math, in 5th grade math, 8th grade math, and other literacy targets, if we're meeting any of them or we're off on all of them. If we have any more data, the link for me doesn't work in the report for the.
Closed, no?
Yeah.
We don't have access.
We don't have access to it.
Oh, to the report?
To the longitudinal. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a link that I've requested access on it a couple of times, but the metrics. Oh yeah. So 9th grade. Do you know off the top of your head how we're doing with 9th grade on track for this next cohort? I think that was a worrisome metric too.
It is a worrisome metric.
In terms of what we set as our growth target?
Yes, I didn't bring my computer, but I do have that data, and it's looking like we did not meet for the 23-24 school year. I'm not sure. 9th grade just started this year, so we don't have that data yet, or looking to see where we're at for the 24-25 school year.
So, of the 5 common metrics, is our only strength that we're focusing on just the 3rd grade literacy, and all others
we did not meet.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I guess my only other is just if we can get access to those full data metrics.
Yeah.
Like that. Thank you.
Of course.
Actually, I have a couple, but that's sort of on a different line. One thing I think that Pat and your team has flagged over the years is how much more complicated the budget's gotten when it comes to different sources of monies, and how there's 11 buckets of money now, and each bucket of money has a different set of paperwork that goes along with it in order to make it work for the district. And I'm just curious, I think I'm thinking that this integrated plan was supposed to help make that whole process easier, and I'm wondering if it has, if this is like a positive thing, trying to pull all these different facets together in one big picture, or if it's kind of making it more obscured or helping or hindering the process.
I think if you talk to business managers statewide, they would say it's a very frustrating process because the grants don't necessarily have the same goals or can be used for the same things. So then you're still doing individual processes, but you're doing it in this one big format for the state. And then you're redoing it for your internal customers and to get it into your financial system. And so there's some duplication of work, and I don't know that it was the best process. I mean, we definitely understood why they wanted to do it, and I think they're going to add a couple things in the future, and so it's just like becoming this huge project that not only do you have to fill this out, but then there's usually supplemental reporting, and every time we submit a claim, I've kind of joked that they really should just host our financial system, because then when they have a question, they could just log in and look and see what we purchased rather than us downloading it, putting it in a spreadsheet, uploading it to them in order to follow up on claims. So whereas 10 years ago, we would submit a dollar amount of a claim and they might pull an audit once in a while, but now it's very detailed. So
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying that now that you're having to like take all these different components and trying to make them fit into the same puzzle, although there might be like 10 different puzzles that you're trying to put together.
Right. I think the intention, we heard a lot about blending and braiding of funding. The issue, it's so easy. And we actually did it. We just didn't do it, in this format because not all these grants you have the ability to blend and braid. So that's where I think it became more and more evident that maybe this wasn't the best for things that really don't go together.
Oh, okay. So you found ways to interlace financing in the district, but then you've had to kind of like resort all that for this process for the paperwork, and then resort it again when it comes to the actualities.
Yeah, there's
of
a
running
lot
the district.
of duplication that ends up happening.
All right, thank you. I appreciate the clarification.
It's not elegant.
No, but I saw the reams and reams and reams of paperwork that you filled out for this, and I do appreciate that. I was trying to read through it today. I got most of it, mostly.
In future reports, I would love to see all of those goals and whether or not we met. I just think for transparency, and then also the funding thing. Our biggest barrier is attendance, and we have a big goose egg there in terms of what we receive. The funding that comes in for that program was nothing. And so I'm just wondering if in the discussion around unfunded mandates or in the discussion around funding at the legislature, is chronic absenteeism and attendance on the agenda as an action item for funding?
So specifically called out, no, but as far as the overall state school fund attendance, the needs around attendance, yes. So it's part of the conversation, but it's not one of the trending right now priorities that I just talked about. Yeah. And you're absolutely right. It is not funded. It's a initiative without funding.
I think that's why I wanted to bring up my kids and their appointments, because if an hour-long morning appointment is causing the district to lose a day of funding for that child, it just kind of seems like it's missing the mark. Anyway, that's why I brought that up earlier. I was curious about that.
Thank you. And then Ken reminded me of the time, so we're going to have just 2 more comments, I think. I did want to elaborate on Stephanie's request on, adding all of the metrics. I think it would also be good in the actual report to have maybe more specifics on what interventions, like what have we tried in each goal that we have, and what is successful, what is still like in process to gather some of this data. I think it would just be helpful for us to kind of grasp what are the things in action specifically in each. I know it's like in it in a way, but more specifics would be great. And then I didn't know if there was one more comment, because this isn't an action item.
Please excuse me if I'm wrong about this, but I don't think that this is about those things. Like, I think when we have our literacy presentation, that will be a nuanced presentation of the literacy data. If we have our mathematics, but I don't think that this would be the proper venue to ask for specifics, because it's not for us, it's just for the states. She's just telling us what they're giving the state to. I don't mean to be. I just think that if those are the numbers we're looking for specifically, they're going to be in those specific presentations later, not in this one, so to speak, because that's not what this is for. This is just for the state to know what we're doing. But for us as a board, we're going to get those presentations and those numbers in a different route later in the year, correct?
I just strongly disagree. These KPIs are what we're responsible for, and so we have to know them because we're signing off and this is an action item. We have to approve this, it's got the stamp of the board to go forward. So we have to understand what the KPIs that we're reporting on are, because we've already voted on them to pass them. Like, they came before us before in terms of what we set the metric numbers at, and we passed them. Like, we voted on them as the specific targets, so it is our responsibility to monitor them. That's written into the law. So.
And it is different for us to see all of them and what we're reporting and how we met them, instead of seeing this one month and this one another one. It would be nice to see this is what we're giving the state and this is how we did. So
Yeah.
I do agree with that. We need them.
Yeah.
Thank you for all the work you've done with this.
Yeah, this is a tremendous report, and I agree. And I was going to say something similarly, that I think just having it all in one place, especially since, we are, this is a public meeting where we can have that kind of reporting all at once, and instead of waiting throughout the year, I think if we don't have the most up-to-date data, like obviously, to note that, but, I think as we're making that progress and what we're able to report in the last school year, I mean, we do have some of that, and to note that growth over time so that we're keeping track to the best of our ability, and then so that also folks in the community can. So I don't know, Ken, it seems
Yeah,
like
I think that there is a presentation, like the report is in here with more detail. I'm just asking for it to be in public discussion. That there is more, there is a report in here that's 14 pages, but yeah.
Yeah, that's part of it, and part of it just so you know, my fault. I need to take ownership. We're trying to be much tighter on the presentations because of the time and kind of what we heard from the board. So the report and the data, although I'm hearing not all of it's in there either, so we'll make sure to get that to you. But part of the report, it's like, okay, how do we tighten it up, which is background data for you, and then the slide deck, so it's not a 500 slide deck versus. So yeah, so that's kind of, and we'll tighten that up. So I apologize if we missed the mark there. And then, Elise, I just want to give you a second. Is any clarifying questions? Obviously, we can connect tomorrow and next week and maybe circle back around. But is what you're hearing as far as you good, or do you need to clarify anything?
No, I think I can share with you and I apologize that the link wasn't available for you. I can share the longitudinal performance growth targets and where we're at with you. And I can just, when I go back to my computer, I'll share it with Ken and he can forward it. And then what we tried and what was successful is something that is what is asked for in our next report for this process, I believe is what I noted. So more of the data, like where are we at, and then what was tried and what was successful, which is something that we collect on our quarterly progress reports. So we do have those of like where we're at and what we're doing. Those are self-reported. It's not as, it's more of a qualitative data, so where we're self-reporting on the steps we're taking as it was our first year of implementation. So. But that could be something that we embed more in our report, or also have it available for you all.
Thank you, Elise. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. So this is an action item. So I am looking for a motion on the integrated plan.
I was just wondering, do we need, it says public input, an action item. Do we need to close for public input or no?
Oh, I think we should, right? Okay. So closing our public meeting to start, what would it be called, Ken?
Public input.
Public input. So closing public meeting, right?
Yeah, take a recess, actually.
Oh.
Closing it, yeah.
Thank you. And then if there is any public input on this. All right, hearing none.
We have one more position that we are going to post as both a counselor and as a specialist and fill one just to broaden the pool of applicants as we look for the right candidate to fill that position. So that is more so of an update on where we are as hiring. Our referral process will run through our school counselors and through our administrative office as we look at what is taking place as far as discipline and the responses and an effort for that self-referral piece for students who are wanting additional support. But that is a 24-25 item that we will want to have a plan for next year.
Okay, and the next one we wanted to highlight, and this is where our report is incorrect. So Sandy, we will send you the correct one to upload to our website, but is our school counseling programs. And again, with the Division 22, it's never a got you if we're not in compliance. It's a place where the state can look at where we're at across the state, where they can look for patterns and trends. And if we find that we're not in compliance, we have until the following school year we submit a plan, and then we show how we will be in compliant with the administrative rules. So Florence, I'm going to turn it over to you on that one too.
This is one that we have been in compliance. Every year we have done this. This past year, ODE, as part of this Division 22 compliance piece, put out a comprehensive school counseling programs district compliance self-reflection tool and went through the self-reflection tool. There were 4 elements within that self-reflection tool, and kind of like a self-rating of not in place yet to partially in place to fully in place. The 4 elements consisted of a district level plan, a school level plan, our hiring process and ensuring that our school counselors are licensed through TSPC, and then an evaluation program. Within each of one of those components, we were somewhere in the partially in place to fully in place, depending on the item. And then breaking it down further, really the part where I felt like we just have more work to do to fully say that we have a comprehensive school counseling plan was I had asked for some feedback around the school comprehensive counseling framework has about 80 individual different components. And in getting feedback from that, I felt like we're not all the way into fully in place, and looking at it globally, just we want to be in that fully in place column. So we opted to go into not in compliance this year while we develop a comprehensive school counseling plan. This form says in compliance. We decided to move that to not in compliance this year. The plan to get into compliance is I have assigned a student services TOSA under my direction to work with some counselors to develop a district-wide plan. The exciting part of this work is part of the comprehensive counseling plan is that every school will have a team, an advisory team, and that advisory team will prepare and present their school counseling program twice a year to their community, and that will then lead into a twice-a-year advisory kind of presentation to a district community as well. So we will hear lots from our counselors coming soon.
Okay, and we will correct that report because this does need to be uploaded on our website along with the PowerPoint presentation we sent you for background information that will be uploaded as well. The next one we want to highlight, Sandy, if you scroll down, is required instructional time, which is 2320. And we are in compliance for last year, but we are only in compliance because we were granted a waiver for 14 hours due to inclement weather. If we were not granted that waiver, we would not be in compliance. So, for example, in 4th and 5th grade, we were short 6.42 hours. There's a 900-hour requirement for elementary, and we're short only 4th and 5th grade because in K3, we are allowed to count 60 hours towards recess time, but we're not granted that allocation for 4th and 5th. So that's why you see the difference months there. Our seniors were short 8.87 hours last year. Their requirement is 990. As you know, once they graduate, we don't make them come back for the rest of the year. So again, we're thankful that we were granted the waiver, and that helped us be in compliance. We don't know if that will ever be a forever thing, but I don't know, Ken, if you want to add anything about that. No, okay. So.
No, I guess I'll just flag right now and then be quiet that again, this presentation, the intent was, in the past we've gone through the whole slide deck. We did present the whole slide deck for background, but what we're focusing on is those that we had questions on and focusing. Otherwise, the others are in compliance. But again, if as you're looking at that background or reading it, if it's not tonight, we can always follow up with more data, more information. But that's why we're only focused on those three rather than everyone like we've done in previous presentations. So
yeah. And we have a couple more. We're just going to go through. So the next one is postponement of postponement of the purchase of state-adopted instructional materials, which is 2360. We have, according to this administrative rule, you can defer an adoption. There's a state adoption cycle, which we are very proud that we've been able to follow thanks to funding from the board. Per the administrative rule, you can defer an adoption up to 2 years, and it should not defer the adoption of the rest of the things on the state adopted list, which is a real challenge. So as part of that process, we need to submit an application to the Oregon Department of Education to show that we are in a postponement period. So I have submitted the year 1 science materials. We're supposed to be adopted last year. This would have been the first year of implementation if we were on track. And since we delayed that adoption, we submitted the application. It was approved, but technically we're in a year 1 postponement for science, depending on how everything goes with funding and everything. So next year would be our year 2 postponement. And then technically, according to administrative rule, we would need to have new science materials in classrooms by fall of 2026. And then the next curricular adoption that is on the list is health. So next year then would also be year 2 of science postponement, year 1 of health postponement. So while we are in compliance, we just kind of want to give a status update of where we are with that. And I wasn't going to talk about it, but in honor of Tuesday's testimony, which was very compelling around Dyslexia Awareness Week, thank you for that. There are 2 administrative rules that speak to dyslexia. One is around screening and how we identify. We're in compliance, I'm happy to say, with both of those rules. We do have screening for in our early grades, but we should make sure our students know why we're screening and what that means. And it is an approved dyslexia screener by the state. And the other one is having teachers trained in our elementary. All of our Title I teachers in our elementary schools are trained for dyslexia as required by the state. So I want to make sure Tuesday knew that. And that's it, unless you guys have any questions.
Yeah, we can have a couple questions if folks have some. Yeah, what's up?
I have a quick question. There's a couple things that are waived to like 27, 28 on there. Do we still look at that so that we know, so that all of a sudden it's not 27, 28 and...
Yeah, so we always want to be apprised of what's waived and what's coming, because this time next year we're going to be reporting on what's happening this year, right? And even though it's waived, we want to be prepared for when that waiver is lifted and when we need to be in compliance. And we also, the state is doing a really great job. There's ongoing Division 22 webinars and workshops, newsletters that kind of keeps us apprised on what to be looking for and how to interpret some of these rules and regulations.
I was just going to say, the way that the state gives us the information is they color code it for us. And that way, when we get the information, we know what's coming up. So that way we can kind of plan and anticipate and prepare. So because next year we're reporting on what we're doing this year. So we need to be also implementing and planning and putting things into place this year that we're going to be reporting on next year.
Yeah, and just to clarify, to make sure, Jose, your question absolutely right on. We do look at it. That doesn't mean if it's delayed that we're in compliance. Like there's one that we're in compliance because it's delayed, but if it wasn't delayed, we wouldn't be in compliance. We know we have to have it. So I just wanted to be clear with that we're not saying we're in compliance. It's delayed, so we're in compliance, but we do review it and say, okay, what do we have to do? Where are we in the process? The one I'm specifically thinking about, school districts with 10,000 or more ADM actually have to have it in place now, and below that do not. We're below that, so we don't have it in place. So we will when it's due. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that as well.
All right. Oh, okay. One last. Yeah.
In terms of the science curriculum, I just want to highlight it because, I think it's a really big deal. And I do want to also mention that our science data or our science test scores from 23, 24 are way below the state averages across the board. And so I really don't want us to continue to be asking for waivers on this. So just want to highlight that especially the elementary school, we're at 16% proficiency and the state average is 31. So state average is also terrible, but yeah.
Thank you for that, because I totally agree with you. And just so you guys know, we started an adoption process just not knowing where we were. We felt like our teams could still come together and start learning the standards. And we talked with all of our adoption teams. Do you want to continue piloting materials? Do you want to pause? Every level decided they wanted to continue. So should funding become available, we'll be ready to go and not have to wait a whole nother year.
That's awesome to know. Thank you both for presenting, and I really appreciate the format of the presentation. It's really concise, but also the information that we need. So thank you very much. And yeah, no more questions. So we're moving on to multilingual learners. Presenter Shane Burchell, you have the floor.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Just to reintroduce myself, I'm Shane Burchell, Assistant Administrator of Multilingual Programs, and I'm going to, tonight, this is just information for you all. So we have what's called the State English Learner Report. This is an annual report. We always have it linked on our website, but there are, and this here gives you the details of kind of the overview of this report. And I don't want to walk through the whole report with you. It's 33 pages, and it includes lots of different kind of pockets of information around how we serve our multilingual learners in different categories, how we fund and other things. But there's just a few things on here I wanted to pick out and highlight for our district that I think will kind of connect. There's a couple through lines from some other presentations tonight around our multilingual population, but I want to walk through just a couple of data points on here. So it's linked on our district website here, and I have just a few things from the report I want to highlight. So Sandy, go ahead. Okay, so this is just kind of the overview to start with. Noticing these two different sort of data points from page 11 and 12, this won't come as a surprise to you, I'm sure, but if we look at David Douglas when compared with our other school districts around the state, this is from, so just one note on this report, we're always a year behind, so this report comes out June, but it's from the year before, so these numbers are slightly higher now than they were, but overall in terms of the number of current English learners, David Douglas, you can see on the left, our count population of active students, 2,236, which you look on that whole list right there, you can see we're right in that top 10. And then if you go over to the right, again, you'll see David Douglas, top 10, 26.1% of our population as of 22-23 from this count. I did highlight as of 10-3, so I just calculated this. Our numbers are up again. So that count was 2236. Our count as of basically last week was 2,528. The percentage of our total student body remains about the same. It's about 26%. One thing this report doesn't really capture, however, is also, so this is active English learners, meaning these are the students that have qualified for services that haven't yet demonstrated proficiency on our language proficiency assessment. When we look at our total population, we're closer generally to around 40% of our population, students that have exited, students that we had tested that didn't initially qualify. So we're talking about, our student population, depending on the building, it's anywhere from maybe 3 out of 10 to up to, at some of our schools, it's 50% of our student population. So that's the number. And that's, again, overall, we know this, but this is just that overall count in numbers, and our numbers are up again. So the second slide, go ahead, Sandy. So this I kind of pulled out as well because, again, we're right in this in terms of numbers. You think about those really big districts, Beaverton, Salem, Kaiser. David Douglas is kind of right up there. So this number is adolescent newcomers. Another term for newcomers is recent arrivers, but this is essentially, this number is calculated for students that are new to our district, that this is basically their first U.S. school, and they have arrived within the last 3 years. And this doesn't really capture the number because this is just secondary, if that makes sense. And I see a lot of head nods. It's like, yes, Shane, okay, we know. But I want to give a little bit more of a detailed report school by school. So if you can go to the next slide. So this is actually calculated right at the end of the month. And so I want to just explain this graphic a little bit because this is, I think, a little bit more precise of a measurement than what the state asks of us. So if you see where it says kinder beginner and first beginner, those numbers there, those are the students we test for potential eligibility. They test at like the beginning level. So these are students that have very limited English skills. We have some of our kinder students and some of our first grade students that are more like intermediate. So they have like a little bit higher language proficiency. The reason that we don't consider them newcomers is because their ELL or LEP entry date is like all of those students, that's our first time in a U.S. school that we're actually counting their participation. And then going across by grade level and by building, then the data is these are the students that have just newly arrived by grade level. And a couple of things I want to point out on there as an example, do you see down where it says like high school and it says 12th grade? You see that number 36 there? That is going back, so just to explain this data a little bit, at the bottom it's kind of our answer key, so to speak. So you go back a year ago, these are the high school students that are current 12th graders that started at David Douglas High School less than a year ago. So they're coming all grade levels. We're noticing in particular kind of higher numbers in secondary than we have in the past, but it's across all of these schools and all of these grade levels. So our overall counts are up, certainly so. It's at a state level, but it's definitely at a local level as well. Any questions on this one before we go to the next? Okay.
Oh, yeah, we were just on Minlow's element.
Yeah. So
is that a 0 or?
No, it's just, so we have the first month to get all of our, what we call our English language proficiency screening, and they weren't quite finished with their number yet, but they don't have 0. Yeah.
Just want to clarify.
No.
Versus 0.
We actually, in every single kinder class in this district, we have anywhere from 20% to 50% multilingual kiddos. Okay. They're just not up there yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry. Okay. And then this one, again, kind of that familiar theme of our strength and diversity of languages. So this is the state kind of percents in diversity of languages here. So you can see that of our current English learner population, basically 76% is Spanish-speaking population, and then we go down from there. So this top 4 is very similar to like our top 4 in terms of languages. Other languages, and Chuukese, and Arabic, and Ukrainian, those have gone up for us in particular. In other languages, we have a better definite. I don't know why they have that kind of lumped together there, but I have a version of that on the next. We'll get that shows us kind of our numbers. The other thing on this that I kind of grabbed from this report is this map over here. And so I just want to kind of just briefly explain that. But basically the unique count of home languages is like language diversity and density by county and by district. So you can see on there right where we're at, we have the most diverse kind of collection of languages in terms of what's reported. And again, this doesn't necessarily capture it for us. So Sandy, can you go to the next slide? And then I think this is a better version. This was as of 8/6, but you can see again, English is still our majority language in terms of primary home language, but also these are the actual student counts for these other languages. This is only page 1, by the way. I could have put some more pages on here, but I thought just for the purposes of this presentation, just to have this. And then the other piece of this doesn't really tell the whole story. Certainly these are just numbers, but one thing too that is a layer is many of our families, in kind of terms of our recently arrived students, their journey here has been through multiple countries. So we like this just today I was actually working with our middle school teachers that work with our kind of beginner level students and our high school teachers. We were talking about some students we have that are from Afghanistan, but they had to travel through Ecuador. So Spanish is really now, so Dari is their primary home language, Spanish is their second home language, and now they're in English. Well, the majority in this particular class, the majority of the speakers are Spanish speakers. So these Dari speakers from Afghanistan are connecting with these Spanish speakers from other places, and then into now English is now becoming kind of now that next piece, if that makes sense. And again, we shared their stories are really incredible in terms of their journeys to get here and where they're from and everything else. But this is just you already know some of this, but this is just to highlight some key pieces of that report that just don't really tell the whole story. And I think that's just knowing that story, knowing the story of our students. And again, I was actually looking through, I was going to start putting up like the list of kind of home countries, because on registration form it is optional to report, but many of our families do report their home countries, and you could just get a map of the world and this and here and so on. So that's kind of it. I knew the plan was to be pretty brief tonight. There's a lot more in that report, but I just wanted to at least share this piece with you. And then if you had any questions.
Thank you. Does Jose?
I have a question about that last slide.
Mm-hmm.
Just how do you determine it? There's a lot of multilingual families that speak multiple languages at home. So this more than 50% one language, is that, or do they put?
Yeah, so this is self-reported on their registration form, and there's a place they can report. So this is just from what they report as their primary language, but they can also report additional languages. So you're exactly right. They may have, several, so it's like Dari and then Farsi and then maybe Persian. And then English is now like the fourth. So this is just the initial primary language they report. Yeah.
Any more questions from folks? Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you.
I really appreciate the presentation and your presence.
Thanks.
And the report. Great.
All right. Yes, and go languages.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Next up, our next presenter presenting on SPED district data and report card, Florence. Take it away. Thank you.
Yes, and I'm actually going to also call up my assistant director, Sarah Altig.
All right. Good evening. Go ahead.
Well, thanks for having us. Sarah's going to get us started.
All right. Good evening. We are just going to do a quick little synopsis on what special education is in David Douglas. We have a quick little agenda for you today. We're going to cover what is special education, who we serve in David Douglas by our numbers, and talk a little bit about our continuum of services in David Douglas. Okay, so what is special education? Terms that we often hear, next slide please, in our special education realm. I think it's really important in student services to sort of understand that special education is just one arm of student services. You hear a lot from Florence Protopapis about other avenues that we cover in student services, so special education is just one of our areas. We are really good at abbreviating terms and making things smaller because it's just a lot of edu-speak out there. So a lot that we hear at meetings or when we're talking with colleagues and with families is IDEA, which is Individuals with Disabilities Act. And I won't read through all of them, but some of them that are pretty key that we use a lot is SDI, which is Specially Designed Instruction, in order to make progress towards grade level standards. Another one that we talk about a lot in David Douglas is least restrictive environment. We are federally mandated to make sure that this is happening with all of our students, gen ed all the way through special education. And we talk a lot about our placement and where we decide students need to get their best education learn, or, you know, where they're going to learn the best. Excuse me. Okay. A term that we like to use a lot in our world is that special education is a service. It is not a place. Special education refers to a range of services and supports designed to meet the unique needs of our students with disabilities. And these are services that ensure that students with disabilities get that free and appropriate education. So you hear FAPE a lot. And that's in line with the federal IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. We do a very fine job, I believe, in our district in special education of making sure that our students get that individualized instruction. They get that through related services in their general education classrooms, through accommodations, to make sure that they can succeed academically, socially, and emotionally. Oh. Okay, I really like this one. I think it really breaks it down for our staff and our families. We talk a lot about making sure that we're transparent with our families through our processes. And so when we're talking about making a student eligible for special education, we're really looking at 3 prongs of an eligibility. A student that we think that has a disability, we want to identify what that is, and we do that through a process called child find and or through data collection. And sometimes families come in with a medical statement of a disability. Then as our teams, we look at the educational impact that the student may have in accessing their academics. And then we look to see if there is a need for specially designed instruction. And something that's very important that we make sure our families and our teams know that just because a student may have a diagnosis, it does not necessarily mean that they would qualify for special education. We want to look at those 3 prongs.
Oftentimes our families come to us and, you know, the biggest question is like, how does this work? It takes a really long time. And it does. Part of it is it's a label, and we want to make sure that when we are doing that, we are ensuring that we are providing services and that we have ruled out everything that we possibly can, and that we are ensuring that we are providing supports for students. So the first thing that we're going to do is that we are going to set a meeting to discuss what concerns. The concerns can come from teachers, the concerns can come from the family. Either way, we're going to get together and have a conversation. And then we're going to determine if we have enough information to proceed to evaluate or if we need to collect more information. Once we have that, we are going to present the parent with that information, and we are going to determine what we are testing for, and we are going to get consent to evaluate. Once the parent decides and signs that consent, that is when our timeline begins. And it may seem like a long time. It is 60 days that this process can take. During that time, that student is comprehensively evaluated. Once that evaluation is done, we schedule another meeting, and the parent is then comes back. We share those evaluation results. And at that point, if we have possible eligibility, if there is an eligibility through that evaluation, we continue on and we write an IEP. If we do not, the process is done. So it is a very long process. We want to make sure we are doing the best that we can to serve the student and collect all the information we possibly can. We have a lot of students in David Douglas with IEPs. Our numbers have steadily grown over time. We typically kind of hovered around that 13%, 12%, 13%, 14.4%. We thought last year at 14.4%, we were pretty high. Those numbers for the previous 4 years are our December 1 year, our numbers. Every December 1, we report to ODE what our counts are, and then that is what our funding is based on, is our December 1 numbers, unlike our October 1 we use for other things. Just to kind of give you guys a snapshot, you've heard a lot about behavior through our bargaining process, through some of the testimonies we've heard about the needs in our classrooms. On October 1st, we had 1,315 students currently identified with IEPs, 15.3%. So definitely an increase, definitely needing more support than we have ever seen in our classrooms. So who are our students? This breaks it down by grade level. It's always fascinating to see this information kind of broken down this way. As you see, it kind of tapers off. While we serve students with IFSPs in our preschool classrooms with our MECP program, the numbers that you're seeing today are strictly kindergarten through our CTP program, which services our 18 to 21-year-olds. We also support our preschoolers, but these numbers are very specific to K-21. I'm going to specifically point out our kinder numbers. We have 112 students in our kindergarten classrooms with IEPs. We did 140 transition to kindergarten IEP meetings, so we had 30-ish students who did not show up in the last 4 weeks that we wrote IEPs for in May. And I bring that up because that means that there is a possibility that we are going to have 30 more students enroll now that things are kind of settling down into our kindergarten classrooms with IEPs that haven't been picked up somewhere else. I know that this week alone, I've seen 3 of those students resurface. So it might just kind of be a slow trickle. We know that they were in our catchment area in August. So we might see some of those students come back again. But this is our breakdown of where we are. The other thing to point out, that these numbers also include our Arthur Academy students. So we do service our students, our charter school. We also provide services for Portland Christian. We are obligated to provide services to our private school in our catchment area as well. This breaks down our eligibility categories for our students. So there are 13 eligibilities under IDEA that we can identify students with. And this does the breakdown. Our biggest group is our speech and language impairment. 26% of our students have that as their primary eligibility. And then looking at the next one is autism spectrum disorder with 19%. And specific learning disability at 16.6%. And then the percentages go down from there.
Florence.
Yeah.
To put you on the spot just real quick, and maybe
Sarah.
Do we know how? Oh yeah, and Sarah. I'm sorry. Back to that.
Yeah.
Thinking about speech and or any. Do we know how many are multilingual learners that have IEPs? I'm just curious because we just had that presentation. And if you don't know, please.
Off of the top of my head, I don't know. But Sarah, do you?
I don't. I'm going to look back at Shane. Do you have that dual?
Do you know what our dual?
I don't know the number, but we do have access to find the number.
We do, yeah.
Yeah, scratch that. Sorry.
Can I ask a question? Yeah. Are people who have mental health diagnoses usually captured in 504s rather than going through the IEP process?
It depends. The first part is determining if there needs to be specially designed instruction, and then that's the differentiation, right? And so if there's just a need for accommodations, then we would go the 504 route. But if there does need to be more than that, then we would look at an IEP. Yeah.
I want to follow up on Ken's question, though, because I'm thinking about the multilingual learners and the report that was shared, not that was covered, but in the deeper report, talking about how such a overrepresentation amongst multilingual learners for SPED diagnoses and a drastic underrepresentation in TAG. It said in the report that they're 14 times less likely than a non-English learner to get a TAG referral. And so I'm wondering, because there's so much crossover between the two things, you know, all the presenting things like that you might get referral from a teacher looks very similar, but the referral pathways seem to be wildly different. And so I'm wondering, as we're looking at our number of multilingual learners, if we're really interrogating our systems here, and how are we able to differentiate when those two things are so closely, they look the same and then the pathways are so different?
I'm like, Sarah and I are smiling. I'm going to toss this to Sarah because the reason I'm tossing it to Sarah, our school psychologists are having this conversation right now. In looking at our student intervention team and our referral process for evaluation for special education and the interventions that we're looking at. And so how are we teasing out students? How are we providing interventions? What is the data that we're looking at? And yesterday, we're looking at some of those processes. So.
Yeah, you covered a lot of the pieces that we're working with. So I work with a school psychologist specifically, and we're looking at our SIT process across the board. K-12, SIT in our district stands for Student Intervention Team. And so if a student comes across that may be a dual language learner or dual identified for special education, we have an obligation, one, to look at child find. Do we suspect a disability? If that's not the case, we're looking at our SIT process. So what data are teachers bringing to the teams to show us that they're academically behind or behaviorally have some deficits, and our school psychs are pivotal in that process. So they're working with the school teams, administrators, school teachers, or classroom teachers, special education teachers, Title I, SAS, all the people sitting around the table to do interventions and really honing in what are those interventions that we're looking at. And so that's something that Shane and I will be working on closely and overlapping, is what do interventions look like for our newcomers and for students that speak 1, 2, 3 different languages, but also we may suspect that there's a disability or something else underlying. So
culturally linguistic, yes.
So we're digging into our processes.
I'll ask because it kind of ties in. Are you also doing that with the discrepancy between male and females being diagnosed? Because girls are often underdiagnosed with a number of things, and there's almost 2-to-1 difference between who's on an IEP.
That's a great question, yes. We do look at that data. Our school psychs during their data teams are pulling that data information. Happy to share it with you if you do want a breakdown of that. But we're looking at how we identify students both by race, ethnicity, gender, all the key components.
Yeah. Yeah, the work that our school psychologists have done through their data team work has been pretty phenomenal in helping us really get to the root analysis of what's happening as far as our referral data, our referrals for IEP, like for testing. This was not for discipline, for referral data for our interventions in order to determine how do we improve our systems for that process. So our continuum of services, we support our students in a variety of different ways. We have general education teachers, our speech language pathologists, and we have speech language pathologist assistants, learning specialists and assistants. We have supported learning classroom specialists and assistants, which is kind of like, lack of a better term, self-contained classrooms where we have academic functional skills and social emotional behavior supports kind of split out in those ways, K-8, and then an AFS classroom at the high school. Our related services are our occupational therapists and certified assistants, so our CODAs, physical therapists, assistive technology, and an assistant, autism consultation. Transportation is also considered a related service. And then we contract with Columbia Regional for hearing consultation and MESD for nursing services. So we're a pretty big team in order to support our students with disabilities. And we do that in a variety of ways. In addition to what you see here, part of it is figuring out placement coding and where students are provided these services. And we do that through a continuum of placements from least restrictive to most restrictive. So as we look at this continuum, we're looking at general education. That is the far left side. That is no IEP. They're basically served by one gen ed teacher in their neighborhood school. And as we move over to the right, we're looking at general education placement with learning specialist support, either push-in or pull-out. And then we move into learning specialist pull-out services, and then specialized instruction happening in a supported learning classroom. In our buildings, that's happening for AFS, at Academic Functional Skills, at Earl Boyles, Gilbert Park, Ventura Park, and Menlo, and then at Ron Russell and the high school. And then for behavior, for social emotional behavior, we're looking at Gilbert Heights, West Palhurst, Cherry Park, Alice Ott, and Floyd Light. We do not have an SEB program at our high school. And then from there, we're moving into public or private separate schools. And so that's, as we're talking about it, we're looking at that outside placement. That's come up through our budget process. We've talked about the number of students that we are placing in outside placements through the IEP process. And then we move to home instruction, which is tutoring. And then in the very most restrictive environment, we're looking at students who are either assigned to a hospital or they're homebound or an institution of some sort. So that's kind of the continuum of supports that we are providing students, and all of these placements are done through the IEP process. This isn't something as part of the IEP team decision. And the last slide that we're going to talk about as far as data is Oregon Department of Education releases in May for the previous year, so essentially about a year and a half later, some data. And this is 2022-23 data. The state target is 77% on how many students have a placement code. This is all strictly based on where we are serving students based on their federal placement code on that IEP. Regular classroom is a 77% goal in 22-23. In 22-23, we were over, had students there, and then currently, we kind of did that October 1 number. We're at 77%. So we have less students in our regular classrooms than we did a year and a half ago. In our supported learning classroom, the goal is 8.7. We currently have 12%. So we have more students than the state target in our supported learning classroom. And then in that separate setting, so that outside placement, the state target is 1.6. We are currently at 2.8. So again, more students. And we take these placements very seriously. They are definitely more restrictive. We look at what the student needs are, and this is the level of need that our students have based on the data that's collected. Yes.
I'm just really confused because aren't kids in where they're supposed to be? How can the state have a target with they want 8% of the kids in supported classroom? It doesn't matter what they want. It's like what the kids need, right? It's the same with the cap. Let's acknowledge the cap at 11% doesn't match our numbers either. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
I will, absolutely, and I echo all that. But I will say there is a caution about over-identification. I mean, that's why there's a target, because that can happen. Back to the multilingual we just talked about, right? So that's the reason for it, Jose. Oops, I understand that, you know, if we go through the process with fidelity and it tells us we need 5% of our students need these extra services, they need that extra service. But they're also the state saying, hey, let's make sure we're not over-identifying. We need to keep our eye on that. Yeah.
I hear that, and I stand by what I said.
I have a question. Oh.
Sorry, my question would be, to talked a lot about the identification on, the team side. Can you share a little bit about the parent engagement piece around that, and what does that look like if a parent, what is their decision in that process?
Two parts to it. The parent is a team member and has a voice at it. So our philosophy, both mine and Sarah's, and we've voiced this to all of our case managers, is that they should be active participants, not passive participants. So we have encouraged all of our case managers to send drafts home of the IEPs so they have an opportunity to review IEPs. We're not there yet, right? Like, that's the goal, but to really give parents an opportunity to review so they're not making on-the-spot decisions. They are able to provide that feedback. There's parent input at once the IEP is established to be able to provide that feedback. Parents are able to ask for IEP meetings at any point, and we encourage that. Once that parent asks for an IEP meeting, that should be scheduled within 10 days, so really trying to honor that piece. Sometimes we come into this place of the parent wants something, and then we have data that contradicts that a little bit. And so driving a lot of those decisions with data is sometimes the way we need to go. At the beginning stages of it, it's that intervention. It's what information do we have. We want them to be part of the process and a part of the team, and work together as collaborative as possible. Sarah, do you want to add anything onto that?
I would just add that we encourage the parents to walk alongside with us and have them as their team members. They're first and foremost the most knowledgeable about their child, and that's the message we want to have our families know from the beginning.
Yeah, I had a couple questions. I'm wondering, I've gotten some feedback from district staff that staffing's a bit low. How are you doing on staffing, especially when it comes to your classroom educators and assistants?
We currently have one position open at the high school. It's a learning specialist with a behavior focused. That position has been open, as posted. It has not been filled because we have not had a qualified applicant, which means that they have a special education license with ODE. Unlike our teaching positions where we can kind of do emergency licenses, with a special education certification, you do need to have a bachelor's and you do need to have a special education endorsement. And if you do not have a special education endorsement, you need to be enrolled in a program, and then the school district is mandated to assign you a mentor who is responsible for all of your paperwork. So it's a pretty heavy lift to have an uncertified teacher in a special education role, which creates a workload issue or concern when we have somebody in a position who's not certified. So we have one position open at the high school, and we have all of the rest of them.
All of our certified positions other than the high school
I
are
was going
filled.
to say they're filled. The only reason I look, I'm like, we have one position, we have one building that has a caseload significantly higher than we would like. And so looking to figure out how do we reduce that. And I know we have a little bit of FTE to wiggle with to find somebody. But again, finding a certified teacher has been a bit of a challenge.
It sounds like you're saying you're kind of facing two challenges. First, just having the applicants that are actually accessible in the marketplace, and then once you got them, getting them on board, or having the funding to get them on board could be a bit
Correct.
struggle too.
Correct. We are in a very different place than we were a couple of years ago, though. So we are staffed, but our case numbers, 1,300 is higher. 15% is more. So we definitely have more students. So our case numbers are higher than they have been.
Yeah, I have another question.
Aaron, just before, because we are over time on this, so I do want to move us along just to make sure that we end on time. Is it okay if you can send your question via email, or is it absolutely necessary to ask in this time right now? sorry to put you on the spot. I just do want to respect folks' time because we are over time. So
I'll hold my comments for now. Thank you.
okay. Then thank you so much, both of you, for your presentation. Really appreciate learning more. I definitely have other thoughts, but can connect with you later. I know you could talk about it all day. So thank you both very much. So we're gonna go on to our bond update with Pat. Take it away.
I will try to be quick. So our new Career Technical Ed Center, yay, permit. And you should see some activity going on over there. Yeah, we did have a follow-up meeting with the bureaus this week. And they have still a few things for us to iron out, but nothing that's holding up work at this point. You should see some masonry starting where the new auto shop will be. You're going to see a lot of hydro seeding tomorrow if you happen to be out and about at probably 4 or 5 locations. Bike paths, they're still being finished, and they're on a rotation from Gilbert Heights to Alisat to Gilbert. Gilbert Park just got done. And the blinds, they had an issue with it, those 3 schools, and they should be going in on Friday. Cherry Park, that tends to be our problem project. Not in the sense that things are massively wrong, but that the contractor is kind of our biggest issue. So we still have issues with folks saying that they are not coming back to finish things. So we've got legal working with us now a little closer, and we'll be probably working through a couple different options to get those folks back on so we can get things finished. We also had a few issues with access controls. Some of the things that got put into the plans weren't quite interpreted correctly, for lack of a better word. And so folks had to come back and fix a few things. Playgrounds are done. And if you scroll down to the next page, we are working on our projects for next summer, Mill Park. We have South Powellhurst, Fir Ridge, and High School South. And let's see here, did I miss anything? I don't think so. We have a bond oversight committee meeting next Tuesday, and they'll be coming to present in November.
Whoa, any questions for Pat?
Just thank you. I'm excited too that the permit's through. Excited to see that work start.
Thank you, Pat. We are, going on to reflections and public comment. So we had 2 folks, but also opening it up for anything that we've heard tonight too. So if anybody wants to start us off. Yeah, and also written testimony. So this is open to literally anything on the agenda tonight, written testimony, and the public testimony we heard tonight.
Well, can I start by just asking if we would consider our youngest testimony tonight and declare Dyslexia Awareness Day? I think she said it was the 14th, if that's okay.
I move that we do that.
So,
second.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay, let's start with
Aye.
Saldaña Lopez, aye.
Franklin, aye.
Gamera Georgeson, aye.
Stevens, aye.
Win, aye.
So this kind of separate, the same, but I-Day on our webpage, there's October happenings. It's what's October, and there's all the different things. I was wondering if we could add a blurb and maybe a little about the testimony that what is Dyslexia Day. It's right. So we'll add to our webpage too.
Just to add on to her, she was preparing slides. I told her she was not allowed to present them during public testimony, but she would love to share them with the district. So she wanted me to share that. So maybe I can connect. Yeah. Okay.
That's awesome. I loved hearing from Tuesday, and every student that comes and testifies, like, we really appreciate it, and we want to hear more of it. I know we've had the slot for our student testimony open and haven't had an opportunity to have a student come talk to us. But really, if you know a student who has been talking to you about an issue, who wants to share with us, we would love to have them. That spot is for them. There's always time. So I just wanted to extend that invitation. And, if you know of a young person who wants to advocate and share something with us, we'd really love to hear it. Yeah. Well, in addition to that, I wanted to kind of share something. I think Shane had brought this up about folks, having multiple languages, and a lot of time when they're immigrating, they go through different countries, and it's something that I definitely think about, especially in the Latinx community, especially folks that are, and I think it also dips into Indigenous Peoples Day as well, because there's a lot of Indigenous peoples who, are coming from Central South America, who speak Indigenous languages, who then, a lot of times arrive in Mexico and then have to learn Spanish. And there's not a lot of Indigenous translators for a lot of Indigenous languages in Latin America. Personally, I work for the health department, and so when we need to talk to someone, we call translators. A lot of times it's IRCO or other services, and there are times where it's really difficult to get a translator. And so when you're wanting to talk to someone about their healthcare, there's sometimes not a translator available. And so I just want to note that's really difficult, and to know that there are more and more folks coming from different spaces, and a lot of those are Indigenous languages that are hard to find. And so just acknowledging that, because it's both about Indigenous peoples and also Latinx heritage. Some folks don't identify as Latinx. I do want to note that, but just knowing that is a struggle, and that, if there's more people out there that want to be translators, I know that they're really in demand. So I just want to note that.
I was going to wait, but I was hoping to reflect on that we've received plenty of written testimony and one-on-one correspondence about the ongoing racism happening to our athletes, and I want to acknowledge that we're hearing that from both family, from coaches, from students, and also hearing real frustration towards the collective us in slow response, and in knowing that this is something that we should anticipate happening in sporting events, because it happens all the time, and that a lot of the footballers now currently being racially abused at both our home games and away games. I want to also note that it was more than the Nelson game. It was also homecoming. It's been based almost all of their games so far. That a lot of those players and their families went through this. When I first joined the board, I went to a listening session at Al-Assad, where those players were racially abused at an away game. And that conversation about, we already did this, we already listened to your leaders, we already listened to you all talk, and it's exactly the same story, but yet this is much worse. And so I want to own that's true. And so I'm glad we have, community sessions coming up, and that we're trying to move into a space of action instead of just reactivity or lack of, in most cases. So I just want to reflect on that.
Thank you, Heather. It's a difficult thing to just bring up, I'm still processing everything about. I just feel like the past few months, that's kind of been a pattern with our students and our parents within our community, and when they go to different spaces, and know that we can definitely do better. And I think there's a couple of things I've been thinking about in terms of recommendations. Definitely want to look over those sports policies, and then how we can implement that effectively. but I was thinking like it's the same process as we did for Gilbert Park, is like maybe having a board liaison to those sporting events, because I want to make sure that, unfortunately, like I'm not there all the time. So like I'm just finding about these incidents, and, through social media posts, to be honest. So they're not, and so part of me is like, now we have to be engaged as board leadership, and really maybe identifying maybe a board liaison to the high school sports. And I'm thinking, not to volunteer you or anything, but this is going to be up to you, Jose, because like I think you're the liaison to the high school. Is that correct? And so I think that's something I would like to be more engaged in terms of like what is the process and how do we ensure the safety of our students and parents, and not just within our campus, but then also other campuses. And I do appreciate seeing the solidarity at the games, hearing from our student report, and then our DDA folks and our teachers. So I do sense that, but also building better partnerships with other our neighboring school districts. So maybe as we look at the school sports schedule, how do we ensure like these better partnerships, with one another as well? And so, with our North Clackamas School Board District, Gresham Barlow, as well as Forest Grove, just to name a few, but knowing that just better communication is really needed. And like what I think someone said in the testimony, communication is really the key to relationships. So just how, as a board, we can get in front of this as quickly as possible, and really ensuring that our community isn't waiting for us to respond, and that we need to act swiftly as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about this, and it's difficult because a lot of things are coming from externally. They're being done to our students. So what can we do to control that? There's so little that it feels out of our control. And part of me is like just engaging with the bodies that govern these sports so that there are more repercussions or more things that happen if these schools are doing it. If they're doing it to our school, they're doing it to other schools. So if a school is a repeat offender, there has to be something. So I think doing everything, yes, with our families to protect them, but also working with those groups to make sure those schools are not doing this over and over, because then we're gonna hear it in 2 years again. We can do a million things with our kids and our family, but if we don't try to do more, then it's just gonna keep happening.
Yeah, please. I was going to say that I'm really looking forward to hearing more from the families of the footballers. I think, and the students themselves. I think one thing that I was seeing in kind of written testimony and conversations is both that there's that wish that there was communication earlier to families, but also that there's that the families are sure we're supporting the coaching staff. I don't know what the board's connection to the coaching staffs have been in the past. This is where my understanding of football, American football, is not not my strong point. I think, Jose, I also struggle with we could do so much. Let's no more games with that school. I think there'd be ramifications. I think you'd have plenty of students, athletes, families, coaches that say, hold on, we need to have a certain number of games. We want to participate. That's why we're here. So I'm listening very widely for solutions and things that the board can do. I think there's definitely a willingness here, and we're here to learn. We're here to listen. We're here to do.
I think for me, I feel like there's still some work to do internally in our district around what the actual impact of racism is on these kids. I've heard it talked about as an outburst or an incident or, smack talk or intimidation. I actually have heard that. And from some people. And it's a weapon. It's a weapon that is meant to hurt somebody, right, in a really deep place. And I think we need to recognize the seriousness of that, like we recognize someone who would bring a weapon to a game. That's the psychological impact of being called the N-word or being called a monkey sounds, bananas. I mean, I'm sorry, but that is, and how is a child supposed to hold that and not react, right? And then that child who does react gets punished. So we have to see these as equivalent, and we don't right now. And I think we need to own that.
Thank you, Stephanie, and everyone for your questions. I do want us to move forward, and I do want to say that it's a yes and. Yes, we do need to be in conversation with, those who, manage the sports, like OSAA, but also I think I'm hearing that we can do better, and I think we should own that part and work on that part as well. So it's both things, and I know that everybody in this table is committed to doing that. And so this is not the end of the conversation, but I do want us to go forward so that we can end on time. So I really appreciate everyone's testimony who's been submitted, who's talked to us, everything that we've seen. We're hearing it, and we want to do better. So thank you. And lastly, our board liaison and committee reports. I don't know if someone wants to start us off.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of testimony here over the past few months from Gilbert Park, and just wanted to report that Juan and I, and also Gabby was there, and Ken met with the educators and, sat on the hot seat for a hot minute, and, heard a lot from them about our process and about some of the things that we need to improve, and about how we need to work on the relationships and the culture there. And so that was just the first meeting, much more to be done. But, it was good to be there and actually sit with them and hear them and ask questions and them of us, as opposed to just having testimony in a board meeting, which doesn't allow for that. So just wanted to report that we're working on it. Yeah.
Just very quickly on policy, because policy is so fun. I had a quick meeting with Laura and Ken about it. When we've talked about reviewing the policy as a whole, which is a giant undertaking because there's so much policy, that's not going to get in the way of our normal policy updates. Those will come as regular, just so you all know, because there's certain updates that we have to do. I'm just reading over the policy that we've had for years to make sure we have nothing that's wrong. I may pick up the pace because I put 3 for this month. I'm never going to finish. So I'm going to move up the pace. So you will get emails from me. And hopefully that will be an email and then what I found. And then that will be the most of the discussions, unless there's something glaring. We're starting next month.
Nothing big from me, but I'm looking forward to meeting with the Gilbert Heights and Lincoln Park schools. So I also really appreciate all the staff and folks who have reached out to me by email just to be welcoming from those schools and other programs. So keep it coming. For a new board member, that's a great way for me to focus in and just meet people periodically. So my email address is always open, and I welcome calls as well. Thanks.
I just have a brief one. So Stephanie Myrie mentioned that the liaison schools, staff from the my liaison schools have been reaching out and inviting me, and I now that bargaining is done, I have a whole lot more time because that's one of my committees to do my meetings with my liaison schools. So next week I get to visit all 3 of my schools, and I am really excited about the continued work with partnering to continue with state funding and so forth. So I'm really grateful for the continuity from as we're exiting bargaining and entering into this next space. So that's my liaison/committee intersection. Oh, and sorry. And the one other thing that kind of fits in there with Florence and I met with John, and we kind of revisited some of those targets from last board meeting around the discipline and how we're going to present those key metrics cleanly. So that'll be we start to see those come out. We have a little bit more fleshed out, and we'll be in touch with that cleanup. No, I'm reporting on the meeting we had, and then we cleaned up those metrics. I'm not putting you on the hot seat. I'm just circling back that we did that work. Didn't mean to scare you, Florence.
Yeah, no, we know you're ready. Thank you. I just had a quick update as well. So in the previous year, we gathered a safety committee that met here at the high school, and I just want to give a brief update that it's right now in a little bit of a limbo. I know I owe Ivy and Tay a few emails and meetings, but I think as we move forward, I think we will have to figure out whether we continue some iteration. I think in my mind, it's more moving. We have gathered the input, and I think it's more about what are the action, the outcome of that. And so you will be hearing from me in the next maybe month, probably the next meeting about where that is. And so I just wanted to give an update because I haven't at the start of the school year. So yeah. And I don't know, Hua, if you had anything else to mention, but if not, then that concludes our meeting. Thank you all so much.